Live from New York, it's Google I/O! Hello, GDG NYC. Thank you for being here. We are kicking off super event in person. Everything is thanks to the team at Samsung today. And Carolina is standing by the stage. She's from Google, who is the other sponsors for this. You're in for absolute treat with super speakers. When we have time for questions, please make your way to the mics on the side and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna and Ruchi, and welcome to the program. And to kick us off is our first speaker. She's an engineering manager at Clubhouse, and her name is Mopeyo. Please welcome up.
Hello, everyone.
Woo! Anybody here use Clubhouse?
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yes, love that.
wait, can we see by a node how many use Clubhouse?
Awesome.
Oh, cool. Wait, I need to, how many use Android? Oh, okay, that's pretty
I
cool.
should raise my hand.
iOS?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's a
pretty well
even split,
balanced.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to give this moment to Mopeyo to actually introduce herself, but let me just introduce myself. My name is Madonna Wambua, and I'm an Android engineer, and I work for a company called Stream. It's an AR core company. And yes, we're here today to talk to Mopeyo. So, Mopeyo.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Mopeyo Grunipe, and I am an engineering manager at Clubhouse. Before that, I was doing Android development. So I've been doing Android for probably 10 years now, and probably 6 or 7 of those professionally.
Nice. And we will leave a couple of minutes during the end for anybody that has any questions for Mopeyo to ask her, but we can just dive in. As you've seen, the topic today is moving from individual contributor to engineer manager, to which is a path that many of us take and others actually decide not to take, maybe moving to the tech lead. But definitely today we'll be hearing from a woman of color how it is like to move from an IC to an engineering manager for a big company. So my first question for you is, what has been your most challenging experience as an IC first? IC meaning individual contributor.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, the kind of biggest career moment as an IC has been joining Clubhouse. So for context, I joined Clubhouse a year ago, February 2021, as the first Android engineer. So this was a time where the app was only available on iOS. It was very popular, and there was no Android app. So I joined, and the idea was port the app over to Android and then launch globally. And the timeline was very much as soon as possible. So that was a little intimidating, but I think it was a super fun challenge. Probably the most I've learned as an engineer, just kind of like thinking about how to architect an app from the ground up, thinking about how to build a team as you're also doing that, because I think at the scale that Clubhouse was at, like it wasn't feasible for me to build the app by myself. Thankfully, like we did all of those things. We ended up launching the Android app in about 10 weeks, actually, and it's now available across the world.
Kudos. I just have
Thank
one
you.
follow-up question to that. Having Jetpack Compose come out, did you lobby for that?
Yeah, so this was a big question when I started. So when I joined, kind of like my first thing was trying to get a lay of the land. What does it have to look like on iOS? What am I going to be building? And a big question then was, okay, should I use Jetpack Compose? And it was really cool as a engineer, kind of getting the chance to be the ones answering these questions and asking these questions. Eventually, like we ended up deciding not to like start out with Jetpack Compose. At that point, back a year ago, it was still, I think it was like Alpha 1 or maybe 2.
Yeah.
So it felt a little risky to kind of like build an app that's going to be available to millions of users with Jetpack Compose at such an early stage. But that's something we did try to keep in mind, is also just making sure that we were set up to use Jetpack Compose. It's very clearly, I think, the future of Android development. So like it's something that like we're open to as a team, something I think that we've architected the app to be able to do that well. So yeah, it's something we're excited about, but we're not there yet.
Nice, I like that answer. And for those that don't know what Jetpack Compose is, if you're an Android engineer or developer, you know we've been using XML for a while, and Google pushed a new like UI kind of like declarative UI, which is super cool. That it's similar to Swift, right? There's a Swift UI too for that.
Yeah.
You want to talk about it?
Yeah, so like I'm probably not the best person because I haven't started using Jetpack Compose as I mentioned, but
Me too.
yeah, the idea is that like as some of you might know, Android development building the UI right now is using XML, like Madonna mentioned. We want to move to a more declarative system. It's kind of similar to React.js, I guess, if you're a web developer as well. So then all your Vue code is in actual Kotlin, and you're doing it at the Kotlin layer instead of needing XML additionally to kind of like lay out your views on the Android device.
Amazing. Let's go back to the IC to engineering manager now. Have a follow-up question. This question comes up a lot. I remember doing a similar talk or a similar kind of like panel, and it's, have you ever thought of being a tech lead?
Yeah, I would say I was a tech lead before transitioning into engineering management fully. The way I kind of think about tech lead is like someone who has the context on a product area at a company. So they're the ones responsible for like the execution of that team and like delivering for that on that team. And that's, I think, a good description of what I was doing when I first joined Clubhouse, in that I was the Android team and I was building out the team, and I was also responsible for delivering the Android app and making sure it launched successfully on the Play Store. And I think for me personally, something that I find really interesting beyond just like coding and IC work is also how people like work on teams. How can we make sure that as you're building the app, the team that's building it is also healthy and people feel like their needs are being fulfilled in terms of like their career path and where they want to go. And I think that's kind of what prompted me to kind of switch into engineering management, because as a tech lead, there's overlap in what you're doing as when you're engineering management as well, but you're more focused on the tech coding and the delivering of the product. So like that was what I was doing. I really enjoyed it, but I think over time I found that I found myself more interested, or also interested in just like helping people grow their career, helping people think about what they want to do next in terms of Android development. So that's kind of why I made the transition into engineering management from tech lead.
Nice. I like that answer. Thank you very much for answering that. And I do have a follow-up question to that. And I'm wondering, what type of a manager are you? Send out that question.
Yeah, I think maybe my team might be able to answer that better than I can, but I'll give it a try. I like to think of myself as a manager that leads with empathy. I always as a manager, my main focus is the team and how the team is doing. Is the team healthy? Are people happy? Are people finding fulfillment in the work that they're doing? And then also, I think as a manager, the line that you're walking is that in terms of like people finding fulfillment, but then also how that lines up with the needs of the company and the goals that you're trying to meet as a company in terms of like the products you're building, the features you're building. And I think like that balance and trying to strike that balance between the two is something I find super interesting, and is kind of why I decided to go down this path.
Amazing. I think they would say you're great. I'm not being biased. I have another question for you. Okay, so the tech industry is basically, I mean, it's very dominated by men. And as a woman of color, I wanted you to tell us, did you find your path moving from IC to engineering manager pretty challenging, or did you have any allies, like allyship?
Yeah, I think I've been pretty lucky in my career, even before Clubhouse, but also especially at Clubhouse, in finding support. My transition to engineering management at Clubhouse really looked like me telling my manager, this is something I'm interested in. And he was, I think, very much an ally in making sure that there was like a clear path to getting there. I know, like, I think in the industry, like that might not be the typical experience, but I've been pretty lucky in having support, and also like support from my team. Part of transitioning into engineering management is kind of going from a peer relationship with the other developers on my team to a manager relationship. And I think like usually that can be a little bit awkward. That can like kind of lead to some tension, but my team has been very supportive. I kind of like, as I was making the transition, had one-on-ones with everyone and talked to everyone, and everyone was like super supportive and super helpful in making the transition as well, and making sure like I think as an engineering manager going into it, it was a skill I was learning as I was doing it. So what I really appreciated was people giving me feedback as well about like what I could be doing better, what was going well, what I should lean into more. So yeah, that was super helpful, and it's been great making the transition at Clubhouse. I think I'm super lucky that this is where I happen to make the transition into engineering management, because I feel very supported.
Amazing. I love that answer. Thank you very much for answering that. Now, to the topic of tonight, Google I/O Extended. I want to ask you, did you watch any Google I/O?
Yeah, so I was working. I unfortunately couldn't like make it to California for the event, but I did catch like some of the event.
Now, follow-up question. What was your favorite announcement and what are you excited for?
For me, I think it's always the Pixel devices. I've been a longtime Pixel user since I think the Pixel 3. I'm currently now using a Pixel 5. And I think I was holding off on the Pixel 6, so it's really exciting to kind of see the sneak peek of the Pixel 7 and also the Pixel Watch. I haven't worn a watch since maybe high school, but I think I'll be back to it now when the Pixel launches. Yeah.
Nice. Did you hear about the Pixel Watch?
Yeah.
You excited for it?
Yes, I'm very excited.
Nice. Cool. That was pretty nice having you here today and having you answer those questions. And I'm going to throw this back because we have a very tight schedule today to our audience. Anybody have any question for Mopeyo? Cool. Do we have any mic?
I think there are mics there.
Oh, the mic. Cool. Oh, we have two mics over here and over here if anybody wants to work on this.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Have you ever disagreed with a team member technically, and how did you handle the situation? Because you were an individual contributor, and when you were developing, you are some kind of alone with your IDE. Now you are a manager. Mm-hmm. It's a context change.
Yeah.
Have you ever lived that kind of a situation?
Wait, so just to make sure I got the question. The question was this my first time transitioning into engineering management and how that has gone?
And have you ever lived a disagreement technically?
Oh, I see. Yeah, so just to repeat the question, it was kind of my transition from being an individual contributor and actually like contributing to the code base and then transitioning into engineering management. And if I've run into, I guess, technical disagreements about how to do something. And yeah, I'm trying to think back. I think one thing that is very nice about developing for Android now versus when I first started years ago is that, like, I like to describe it back then as kind of like the wild, wild west, where, like, Google didn't really have strong opinions about what makes a good Android app, so everyone was kind of figuring it out, and a lot of times it was wrong, or at least it could be better. Now I think with like things like the Jetpack like libraries and the architecture components, there's kind of like a more agreed upon way to do Android development. So I think like that's the guide that we followed when we were building the. So we knew that to kind of enable us to move faster as we built more features after we launched. We wanted an MVI architecture, so model, view, intent. We kind of leaned really heavily into Kotlin. We're 100% Kotlin app. We leaned heavily into the Jetpack libraries. We use Jetpack navigation, and we use Airbnb's like Mavericks library to help us like do MVI as well. So I think because of that, like there's a clear kind of set of what it takes to build a good Android app nowadays. So there weren't any like big, like technical disagreements on how we were going to build the app. Also, I would describe my team as like pretty easygoing. We're an easygoing set of people. And one thing I also like about the engineers on the team is that we kind of all understand we're kind of working towards the same thing. So as long as we can do what we need to do, we don't really have strong opinions about, like this is the right way to do it. We recognize that there are multiple ways to do something, and each of them kind of like have their like the good and the maybe like the not so good, and maybe why it doesn't make sense for this specific case. So usually I think for like things like technical disagreements, we just kind of like talk through it when we go through code review. And if someone has a strong opinion, they'll share it, and it's like, okay, we'll do this and see how it goes. And I think that's fine to do as a technical team, as long as the decisions you're making technically irreversible. And I think building an Android app, there are very few things that are irreversible that you can't kind of walk back later if you outgrow it.
Nice. Thank you very much for asking that. Anybody else have any question? Cool. Keep them coming. We have 5 more minutes.
So I'm a college student and I'm majoring in computer science, and I wanted to know, what about tech inspired you to kind of get into the role? And also, yeah, what about Clubhouse struck out to you?
Yeah,
as unique?
that's a really good question. Thank you. I think like what really kind of sparked my initial interest in tech were my brothers. I have 2 older brothers, and they're both also engineers. One's a chemical engineer, the other's an electrical engineer. So I was definitely like watching them growing up, taking things apart and putting it back together. And then I would take things apart and I couldn't put it back together. And I just really enjoyed that. I think for me, I also studied computer science in college. I think the reason why I really enjoy it, and especially Android development, is just like the feeling of trying to do something, it's not working, and then you figure it out and it's there on your screen and you did it and you can like put it out into the world. I think that's like the feeling I've chased as an engineer. When I was in college, I did an internship, and that was similar actually to working in Clubhouse, because that was launching an Android app for Khan Academy. And it was really cool because like I spent the summer doing that, and then I went back to school and I was walking down the street and I saw someone using the Khan Academy app. And like that kind of feeling is, I think, what really makes me enjoy what I do a lot. And yeah, I think Clubhouse is very similar. When I like Clubhouse is kind of like, you know, social audio and enabling people to like talk to their friends and meet new people and find community. So I really connected with that part of their mission. And then I think as an engineer, I was just very, very excited for the opportunity. I think like as an engineer, it's very rare to get an opportunity to work on an app before it exists. Like you are the person kind of like building it from the ground up. So technically that was just a very exciting challenge for me. And I was excited to like, I'd never done it before. I didn't even know if I could, but I really wanted to try. And thankfully it went well.
Cool. I think she's pleased. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, cool. Love it.
Hi. So do you still contribute to the code base as a manager? And do you find the same type of satisfactions as an IC versus a manager?
That's a great question. I do still contribute every now and then. I actually try not to. I think for me, the way I think about it is that when you transition from IC to manager, you want to remove yourself from like critical code paths. So anything that's time sensitive, you don't want to be the engineer working on that. And that's just because as a manager, you spend a lot more time in things and just like talking to people. So you have less focus. So when something is time critical, you shouldn't be the one doing it because it's probably going to ship later than it should. So a lot of the code that I write now is just like bug fixes, which I still find very satisfying. I think I like to think of bugs as just like user pain, like this user is seeing this and it shouldn't be this way. We should make it better. So I still like, I derive a lot of satisfaction from still being able to do that. But also like, I think I derive a lot of satisfaction from just like helping people and kind of managing my team, which is kind of why I made the transition in the first place. I think it's really cool to like as an engineering manager, you're one step removed from maybe the day-to-day development, but you get to think at a higher level about like the company's direction and where it's going and how that aligns with your team and where they wanted to go with their careers, and making sure people get to work on things they want to work on and things they find satisfying. And I think that's kind of also another puzzle and I think a lot of software engineers, and I as a software engineer, really enjoy puzzles. So I enjoy trying to like make those two things kind of fit in a line.
Amazing. We have space for maybe one more last question. Do we have another one?
Yes, hello.
Okay, cool.
Hey, so it sounds like you joined Clubhouse when it was experiencing exponential growth, and that's amazing. And so I'm curious, like, what were some of your considerations about supporting that type of demand, and like, what were some of the decisions you had to make, like, kind of just quick because of you were working at a really high, fast growth startup, and some of those key learnings?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think we were lucky in that, like, you know, we weren't starting out and it was like, we need to build an app across 2 platforms. So we could take a lot of learnings from iOS. We had a sense of the scale that we needed. I think in terms of scale, the biggest thing for Clubhouse is like when you're in a room with thousands of people and you should be able to hear everyone, you should be able to like move onto the stage and speak if you need to. And thinking about like that technically, I think was probably the biggest technical challenge in the app. But it was nice because we had the context from iOS, so we knew that that was something we needed to look for when we were deciding how to architect the app. So yeah, I think like having the iOS app as kind of the groundwork helped. And one thing I did when I joined was I would have, I think, almost daily meetings with the iOS engineer just to kind of get context in the iOS code base, issues that they ran into. And then I go back to like my drawing board and say, okay, well, it makes sense that we want to architect this as a MVI app so that like the views are really simple and really dumb and we can kind of move all the logic to the view model. Those are more testable so that we can write like better, we can kind of have better test coverage on the app. So I think having the foundation and the context was super helpful with that.
Amazing. Thank you. And if we have more questions, we are running out of time. Please, Mopeyo is going to be around. You can follow her on Twitter and connect with her. Thank you very much, Mopeyo.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, I mean, this was amazing for sharing your journey and also talking about how it's been for you and also answering all those questions. Amazing questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And like Madonna mentioned, if you have any questions, I'll be around. More than happy to answer them.
Amazing. Coming up next is our group of Google I/O panel. Yes.
Hello.
Welcome, Anna.
Hello, GDG NYC. I'm Anna, one of the organizers, and this is the panel about the live experience from the shoreline.
And we'll be joined live. Joining live will be Ida.
We're expecting one virtual speaker as well. Aida.
There she is. Hello.
Aida.
Hi, everyone.
Isn't this marvelous? This is all, again, thanks to the team at Samsung. Thank you for being here. Welcome. This is takes a lot of effort to have this production, and I'm happy to share the live experience from the show. Madonna is also a GDG NYC organizer, and Kevin is somebody we may want to be organizer. But he's
I don't know.
a
We've been
point.
running an Android group for 10 years. I think we'll see. I don't know. I'm Kevin. We used to run the Android meetup back before the thing that happened. I'm so excited to be here with everybody. It's kind of weird though. So how's everyone doing? Good? Wow. All right. Thank you for having me, by the way. It's my first like public
Did you say
thing.
you are the DroidCon organizer?
We used to run DroidCon. We still do the CFP. DroidCon is the CFP's open, and it will be happening, I think, in September, which is real bad. I don't remember when, but I'm pretty sure September. So check that out.
Yes.
Anyway.
And
Cool.
Aida, Madonna and Aida should introduce themselves.
Yes, and my name is Madonna, and I'm happy to be here to share my highlights for 2022 Google I/O.
Aida, what would you like to say?
Hi, everyone. My name is Aida. I'm a Google Developer Expert for Android and Google I/O in person this year.
Madonna and I were actually on the front row. It was an incredible experience. How many of you have been to Google I/O? Oh,
Ooh, pretty
wow,
good.
that's awesome. I highly recommend it to do it at least once in your lifetime. It's a rock festival for nerds. And of course, you can watch YouTube and everything that happens there. The reason to go is because you can connect to every product manager developer who is behind the very products you use.
Mhm.
I myself am analytics optimization consultant using the power of Google Cloud. And the reason I go there every year is because I can directly talk to people from Google Cloud, from Google Search, from Google Analytics, say what I need, what's coming up. This is just incredible opportunity. I used to go to a bunch of conferences and, learning about Google products, and I was like, why don't I go straight to the source? So Google I/O is the perfect place for that. So get ready. This year was limited, but next year we'll be back to full-blown conference with 10,000 people.
Woohoo. And I think with that, we'll start by just talking about our highlights for Google 2022. And Ida, if you're ready, you can start for us. Ida, you're ready?
Yes, of course.
Please.
My biggest highlights was tooling support, kind of full-blown Android features that were live. I think they were amazing and helped developers build in Jetpack companies, which was awesome. One of them, the most highlighted, I guess, flagship deal. Then, is the most important stuff that we can review right away.
Yeah, we can't hear. Ida, we can't hear
No?
you pretty well. So maybe we can go to Callaghan. Sorry about that, Ida.
Is there something you
No
can do
worries.
about the sound?
Your sound is a bit down.
Get close to the mic, maybe. It's more like the encryption's garbled. Yeah. Yeah.
We can troubleshoot that live.
So it might be trying to do noise cancellation or something, but try to get close to the mic and see how it goes.
All right, let me try again.
Oh, better.
That's too loud. Okay, cool. So,
I'm AV support
guys-
as well.
very good. Wanted to mention support, a lot of features that came up in Android Studio specifically, for development. One of them being LiveStack feature, the big thing that changes right I need to deploy, and it happens as you code. So that's one cool that I'm excited about. And then the second one is the recompose highlight. That will tell you exactly how many times, like let's say, your composable function was recomposed, how many times it caused drawing and then redrawing on the screen. Did you guys hear me?
We can
Hello?
hear you, but you're breaking a little bit. But we're very grateful that you shared.
We got the rough overview, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
Ida shares a lot of information for Android developers. So if you're an Android developer, please make sure you follow her. She's amazing, and you'll learn a lot from her. I think we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did we say Ida works for Twitter? So we're gonna have events at Twitter.
Yeah, she
with
also works for
herself
Twitter.
and the rest of the Android engineers.
Yes. I think we can go to Callaghan next.
So if anybody, did anybody used to go to the Android meetups? I saw some of you here. How's it going?
Oh, cool.
The last few years, if you've gone, then you're probably like, he's going to talk about Kotlin only, which is kind of true. So I've been mostly focused on Kotlin. So the I/O announcements were interesting, but you notice that you pay attention to the things you actually work on. So almost all of it went over my head. I will say my favorite parts were really, it's been a long time since you can be around people. And part of that's a little like, whoa, suddenly you're around a ton of people, but it was also good, like people you haven't seen in years. And just interacting and having the conversations, even just being in a different place, it takes you out of whatever mind loop you're in, and you start thinking broader. So it was really good to see people, met new people. I had not met either of you since before I/O. I think that was my favorite part. And they had a thing called the Android Roadshow the day after, which was an all-day thing. And it is a roadshow. Apparently, it was in London today. I saw the tweets. It was amazing because you get to directly ask the team, such as questions like, how do I convince my team to do a large screen format again. Like, no adjustments, but it was really great. For me also, mostly what we pay attention to right now from the Android tooling set is Compose. And I run an agency and we still do mobile apps still. We've been doing that forever, I guess. We survived all the agencies that kind of sold or whatever. Anyway, because we get to do a lot of greenfield, we actually get to do a lot of Compose on Android. And because my weird job is making Android code work on the iPhone, I think I had the first running like Compose runtime on the iPhone.
Wow.
Like, I didn't fix it. That was Andrei Shirkov, but he only made it work on the Mac OS. Anyway, we're like super into Compose, and the amount of effort and time and progress that's been going on has been amazing. So that's been very exciting to me. And then the little stuff like Logcat 2 and all the tooling stuff, that's pretty much what I pay attention to. So that was very exciting. But mostly it was the social stuff, I would say.
Oh yeah, and the food too.
No, it's usually not that good.
Oh, it's not that
But
good.
it was far fewer people, so I think they could spend a little more is kind of what happened. So to be perfectly honest, it was interesting. At least I expected it to be come in here, get all together for the good camera shot of the keynote, now leave. And it wasn't quite that. It was a little more than that, which was nice.
Yeah, cool. I think I can go ahead and share my highlights too. And to me, I wrote them down because they were pretty important. And the first one was the monk skin tone. I don't know if anybody got a chance to watch that, and let's just see into their professor. I think he's a professor, not sure, but he's been doing that research for more than 10 years. So if you get your time, if you're a developer, please look into the monk skin tone. And also I'm excited about the Pixel Watch because as you can see, I've not had one and I've been waiting. So maybe this is the time for me to get one. Also, I was very excited about Jetpack Compose live edit. I know, I don't have one.
I had to hide my Apple Watch. It's occupational hazard. I said I make Kotlin work on the iPhone.
So the
Sorry.
Jetpack Compose live edit, this was pretty cool too. If you're an Android engineer trying to explore Jetpack Compose, try see how live edit works. And I've worked for a neurotech company based out in Boston that was building Google Glass for kids with autism. And thank you. Thank you. And advanced their Google Glasses. That was pretty cool for me, even though I don't work for them anymore, but that was pretty cool. So they do have like new Google Glasses that are coming out. And also the immersive, that is the AR core, the Geo API. I thought that was pretty cool. Anybody saw that, where you could walk into a restaurant and see, everything. It was there if you didn't watch it. And also I would say, I think all the videos are released, so you can definitely find some time to watch them. And for the Android section, I feel like I'm marketing for Android. But I'm an Android engineer. There's a lot of videos to watch on the new improvements. Yeah, thank you very much. And also meeting new people. I met Callaghan there too. And who else did I meet? I met so many people there too, which was super awesome. And it being like only like 1,000 people invited, where the event is always like 10,000, was pretty small, intimate, and great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, yes, it's quite an experience to be under the California sun at the amphitheater as the Google CEO walks on stage and makes all these big announcements. But I spend my time meeting people, not only Kevin, actually a lot of the speakers that you're going to meet today, I invited them at I/O. So that's the reason to go there, to meet absolute experts. And I really want to give a special shout out to Google for making this year's, and every year, but especially this year, it was a lot of emphasis on women tech makers. Madonna and I are also Women Tech Makers Ambassadors, which is a volunteer group to support women in tech. And after the keynote that you saw, after the developer keynote, that's for everybody, and it's the main event. But if you've been there, you know that Google takes over the entire Shoreline Theater and build an entire campus with code labs, with dancing, with food, with all these things. And this year there were two breakout stages. And one of them was about women tech makers. It was absolutely amazing energy. If you've been to Women Take Makers events, they have special vibes. And so this year, half of Google I/O was about women take makers. So that was super special. And from the announcements, I don't think there was any one thing that stands out. They make so many. You already heard about hardware, software, AI. I'm very excited about another speaker we have about Google Cloud. You know, Google Cloud is the most innovative cloud, right? And they announced one of the best kept secrets, it's, at least for me, is Cloud Run. If you've used Cloud Run, you can just use it to launch apps seamlessly. They auto scale. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is worry about your code. So that's pretty amazing. And Martin Omander, who again I met at the I/O, he's gonna speak more about this. And also the AI announcements, the breaking down of tasks. You know, Google is not making huge announcements like a metaverse or anything like that, but they use AI in all of their products, and they're making fantastic advancements. And we're going to talk about this later with other two speakers that we have, how they use text to generate images. So basically you can say, in Google AI just tweeted that, oh, I want a red hedgehog sitting in a chair reading a book, and you just type that and it generates the image for you. So we're going to have speakers who already talk about this. So this was also pretty amazing.
That does look amazing.
Did Aida fix her sound?
I don't know.
I hope I did. Can you
Oh,
guys
maybe.
hear it?
That's much better. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, good.
Although we'll see.
Awesome.
We'll just start talking if it cuts out again. But
Okay, you have a do-over, Aida.
yeah.
All right, let's start over again. I guess my highlights will be, is it still bad?
No, it's good.
Awesome, cool. So my biggest highlights are related to the Android development tooling, because I do feel like there's a lot of support came out of that, especially with the Android Studio, support for live edit, support for the recomposition counter, that you can see the highlights, how many times the composable function is recomposed, and you can see whether there are some functions can be skipped, you know. I think I'm going a little bit too details. And then another most important one, there's a Crashlytics integration directly straight in the Android Studio. We don't need to go anymore to Firebase, you know, to check what class exactly, what line of code has a crash. We can see it directly in Android Studio and open that class. So really excited about the tooling support.
Yay.
I was very excited about that.
Yeah.
And then they also were like, hey, Flutter now gets full support for this stuff. And I'm like, why won't they say multi-platform? Just say it. Just make it happen. I don't know. But I am pretty excited about the Pixel stuff. And it's not real yet, but the demo they had with the glasses and the translation, like if they can actually do that, that's going to be really cool. I'm really excited about that because the first Google Glass was interesting.
Oh yeah,
That
was, I think for me as a developer that built for it, I feel like the most challenging part was testing it, because it was very small and then you had to test through that screen, and then writing all that code and writing in that glass, it would heat up and then burn my face on the side. I know, it was very funny. So I was like, oh no, this is not a better way of testing this. But that was the only way I knew how to test it, because there wasn't like an emulated phone. So it was just have the glass, test it there. And then also building for that glass was pretty hard, because you had to build your own components, like little UIs that would fit, because I mean, it's too small. So yeah, it's pretty challenging, but I also learned a lot.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. We did a little bit too. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a challenge. It was a challenge.
What about Google Wallet? Madonna, you shared you were excited about Google Wallet.
Yes. I don't know if anybody heard about that they were trying to emulate what iOS has for the wallets. So Google, like on Android phones now we can have that, and also the driver's license too. Like we can put them in the wallet, which is going to be super awesome. Like if you forget your wallet, I think I have 2 handbags or 3 that I change from time to time, so I don't I might forget my wallet, but then if it's everything on my phone, I mean, it's right there. So it's going to be awesome.
Aida has something to say about that, I think.
About wallet?
Any comments?
Yeah.
Well, I
Yes.
kind of really liked it during the Google I/O. Google accepted so many failed projects and then relaunched them. Like
It's a marketing event. Don't say failed.
yes,
Let's say refined. Try refined. Start over.
because refined projects year over year. One of them is wallet. Hope this time it's gonna rocket.
You got to come to the regular Android meetup and we can talk negative things. I was kidding, by the way. I think you've done an amazing job. I would love to help out with the GDG. If there's anything I could be helpful with, by the way. This is amazing. Let's hear it.
We already started collaborating. Kevin already invited his meetup, and I want to give shout
We
out
weren't
to
busy.
one more engineer from Android who is from Twitter, Michael. He couldn't be here. I met him on the Women Take Makers bus. You know, every Google I/O starts with the Women Take Makers party on the eve, and I was happy to see guys there. I don't know why guys are intimidated. Women Take Makers events are awesome, but he wasn't. And I invited him. He's not coming, but we're gonna have events at Twitter definitely. Android study jams.
Okay, that sounds
Yeah.
cool. If anybody wants to hear about multi-platform, I'll just keep saying it until it just slowly works in everyone's, engineering plan. Anyway.
Nice. And I think we have one more minute left. I don't know if we have like one. Yeah, I think we have
For one question.
Yeah, only one question.
This is kind of a dual question, but it's one question. Here's a question that no one asked at Google I/O, but they did the year before, 2 years before. What can you say about Fuchsia and like its future in terms of Android and Chrome and Fuchsia together?
I mean, I don't think anybody outside of Google knows. I would imagine that 99.999% of people in Google have no idea. My only speculation is that Google spends money on experiments, and they have sort of the money to spend because if you work out or don't, it certainly it's not going to be a big problem. I would be surprised if the base of Android became Fuchsia anytime soon because we've been talking about it for years. Having said that, Flutter is a portable UI. Fuchsia is a lean version of an OS. So if you wanted to spin up a device that was on a wall or in a car or on a fridge or whatever, being able to not have to carry around a quote unquote, I apologize in advance, legacy things like Linux, which is not what I think, but Fuchsia is different. I can see that being a very viable thing. I think that's why they're doing it. I don't see the urgency to replace like Android.
When do you think it'll become stable, Fuchsia? Like their roadmap.
There's very few things in the world I know, and that is definitely not one of them. So I have no idea.
That is a great ending, Tombo. Well, thank you so much. We have Wonder Woman herself, who is next. She's by the stage. Enjoy.
It's great to see
Thank you all
everybody.
very much. It was amazing seeing you all.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everybody. I will always take that introduction. And this very much brings back memories because I'm a former GDG organizer for up in the Boston area, and we used to run events like this, so it's wonderful. So my name is Jessica Janik. I am a senior software engineer at Google. I'm on the Angular core framework team, and I just wanted to say welcome to Google I/O Extended. Wait, I think there's something wrong with that logo. Yes, Google I/O Extended. I'm pretty sure there's someone in Google marketing right now that's very upset with me for changing their logo, but they'll deal with it. So as I mentioned, I'm on the Angular core framework team, and so I'm here to talk to you about the state of Angular. If you are not familiar with Angular itself, it is a framework made for engineers to build scalable web applications. It has been around a long time. That scale is designed around maybe scaling your team or scaling your technology, just scaling your app up. Angular has been here and will continue to be here. So what has the team been up to? We've been doing a lot over the last several years, and we're like in the throes of working on a new version of Angular right now. So we've got a lot going on. There's a lot of new features out there. But before we get to the new features, I'm going to step back a little bit and talk about our rendering engine. So if you are unfamiliar with Angular, we've had several rendering engines over the years. Our previous one was called View Engine. Our current one is called Ivy. And we've landed Ivy, which was a complete rewrite of our entire runtime and our compiler. We landed this fairly recently within the last couple of years. It was first available in version 9 as an optional thing. You could use either rendering engine. And then I believe as of version 11, it is the default rendering engine in the 3P world or the outside of Google world. Inside of Google, it took a little bit longer to get Ivy landed, but eventually we got it done. And now Ivy is the default renderer everywhere. And what Ivy actually is, what we built it for is to improve just about everything we possibly could about Angular's infrastructure. So it unlocked things like improved type checking and error reporting, better debugging, smaller bundle sizes, and a lot more. One of the things that it unlocked is the Angular language service. So if you use VS Code and you write Angular code, there is a plugin now called language service that will actually give you syntax highlighting, catch your errors, and do all of those things that improve productivity right there within VS Code before you even get to like the compile step. You can see it right then. And without Ivy, this was not possible. So that's available right now, and it's currently got, I think, 3.1 million downloads. So people seem to be quite happy with it, and it continues to grow as we add features to Angular as a whole. Additionally, we now have Angular DevTools, which is a Chrome plugin that you can just download and install that will give you deeper insights into your Angular web apps. So you can see things like individual change detection cycles now with Angular DevTools. Let you dig much deeper into your application that you couldn't do before. The Wonder Woman instincts kicking in, sorry. So this is available now. It's been really well received as well. There's a bunch of additional work getting done with DevTools. So we're looking to add Firefox support as well as dependency injection debugging. So all of that's coming soon. We're real happy with DevTools. It seems like the community is real happy with DevTools as well. So we say faster with Ivy. The Ivy rendering engine is faster, but once we landed Ivy within Google, we were actually able to see numbers associated with just how much of an improvement it was over our previous rendering engine. Specifically, with one of our largest customers within Google, we saw a 90% less resource usage during build time. 90% at Google scale is an enormous amount of resource usage. There were virtual cheers happening when we started to see these numbers. We also saw for one of our other bigger customers a 30% reduction in their bundle sizes. So that's a 30% reduction in the amount of code shipped to the client. That's pretty big too. We're real proud of that. One of the principles of Angular is that when we move forward with new versions, we actually move everyone forward along with that, so we don't leave people behind. And we've got some tooling that helps with that I'll talk about in a bit, but within Google, it was a bit more of a challenge, and we had to do a lot of manual work to like help move people across the line without disrupting any of their production code and any of the, like there were no issues with it. And we're really proud of the ability of Angular to do that. And that's going to continue to be something that you can rely on with Angular. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about the actual tool we use for it in a second. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about what's next for Angular. So this is a huge one. Standalone components. I know there's a lot of people very excited about this. If you've been following any of Angular's social media, we've been talking about standalone components probably for the past 6 months. And right now it's available in RC. So if you've never used Angular before, it's part of its mental model. You have components, but you have to group them into this module system, ng modules. And that can be confusing, especially for new engineers coming in and learning Angular. They have to put all of their dependencies and everything they want to use into this separate module instead of the component itself. And standalone components completely revamps that whole thing. You can actually just use a component by itself. Let's take a look at how that looks. So there we go. So this is an example of like a very basic standalone component. You can see on that top line, we're just doing the simple importing of components, directives, and pipes that we're going to use in this component. We specify standalone true. It's pretty much, that's all that's really needed. And then you have this imports line, which used to be on the module, but now it's right here in the component decorator. And you can put whatever components, directives, and pipes that you want to use right there. And as you can see in the template, you can actually see we're using the foo component, the bar directive, and the baz pipe right there. And this is all it is. You don't need a separate module. You can just do it right here. We've also been hard at work with the whole getting started journey with Angular. We know that our learning journey on the angular.io website has had a lot of examples that aren't necessarily as helpful as they could be. So we've had our entire documentation team working real hard on revamping all of the documentation, all the guides, all of the API references, all of that, so that you have more accurate, easy to follow tools. It's like part of this whole simplification journey that we have around Angular right now. Make it easy, make it simple for people to learn. This is going to be an ongoing process, so there's a lot of active work going on right now. So you'll see updates to angular.io as they roll out. So conformance. People probably don't hear this word that much, but when we say Angular and conformance, we really mean best practices. Angular has a history of using, we inject best practices from the get-go. TypeScript being integrated into the framework from the beginning gives you strong typing as a best practice right away. We also, I think, are the only framework that when you generate a component, you get the scaffolding for a unit test already, and that's a best practice that we push. We kind of have this reputation for being the opinionated framework, and conformance is part of that. So we try to work in best practices. One of the newest features that integrates the conformance best practice idea into it is typed forms. So up to this point, you were able to write web forms, reactive forms, template-driven forms, and you still can, of course, but there was no strong typing associated with it. And like, we've had this request open since I think 2016. So it's been in our backlog for a long time, and it's the #1 request, the #1 feature request we've had within Angular. Now that Ivy has landed, we've been able to focus on some of these new features that people have been requesting, and typed forms is huge. So whether you have complex forms, simple forms, nested, you'll actually get typing built into your form fields. An example of this is right here. We've got, of course, a cat form field, a form group. So you've got your declaration for your form group, and there's 2 form fields in there for name and lives. Name form field is text or a string input, and lives is a number input. So you can see down below, they're trying to access value.email. Well, that doesn't exist. So our language service is going to tell you right as you're coding it. Or Like if you try to access substring on a number field, well, that doesn't exist, so you're going to get an error there too. And same with when you're trying to set the form field values, if it's an incomplete set, so you didn't pass the name field in along with lives field, you're going to get an error as well. Now you get this both within the language service and at compile time, whereas before you wouldn't get anything. And this could potentially go into production, and then your users would have problems, and you'd be like, "Why? Where are people having problems? What?" So this is now really exciting to see. One of our team members spent a lot of time building this out, and people have been playing with it both inside Google and outside of Google, and the response has been really positive so far. So please try it out. We'd really appreciate it. So earlier I mentioned moving everyone forward along with new changes. And ng update is the command that is in the CLI that actually does this. So if you are moving between an old version and a new version of Angular, you can actually just go into the CLI and type ng update, and it will run a whole bunch of migrations for anything that changed between the previous version and the new version, and it will give you that out of the box, so you don't really have to do anything. Now, if you do have something that's maybe outside of the norm, like you've changed something that we can't migrate, there are cases where we have this problem. We actually also have this tool, which is update.angular.io, where you can actually go here and put the version that you're in right now. Let's say it's, I don't know, 12, and you want to move to version 14. You can enter that in here, and it will tell you exactly what changed between those versions and what you need to do to migrate to that latest version. So if it's something that you still have to do it. Speaking of new versions, Angular v14 is, we'll say, weeks away. Technically, it's scheduled for next week, but I didn't tell you that. It's currently, we're currently in RC2 for Angular v14. We encourage people who are familiar with Angular, working with Angular, to please install it RC, test it out, see if it works. Let us know if you have any problems with it so that we can fix it, before v14 goes out. But v14 is really exciting for us because it is one of the most feature-rich releases we've actually had in the recent years. There's a lot of buzz around it. I know there's a lot of buzz around the inject function. We've seen some memes going around about it that are actually funny, which is uncommon for a web framework to have memes about. Yeah, so check that out. And if you want more of my nonsense, I'm actually going to be hosting the launch party for it after it happens. So please watch the social media for Angular, and you'll find out when that happens, and you can see me being silly. So let's take a quick look at what's in the future. Some of the stuff we're about to talk about is coming very, very soon, and some of it's a little further out. So we've had accessibility over the last probably 2 years or so. We've had folks on the components team revamping all of our accessibility on all of the components within the components library for Angular material, making accessibility just built in for you and done right. So if you're using the components library, you've got it there built in. We've also added this new feature with title tags. So up to this point, specifying your title tag for your components at the root of your app has been, it takes a second before it applies. We've now updated our router to support a title field so you can get it before on the page. We also have something called extended template diagnostics. This is kind of like linting, but it's actually for your templates. So if you're unfamiliar with Angular, we have components, and then there's a separate template file, which is an HTML file. And we've never really been able to run any sort of linting tooling on it until now. We have, as part of our language service, checks built in that will help problems within your templates before you release them as well. For example, if you're using a nullable coalescing on a non-nullable object, you'll catch that for you now while you're working in VS Code. Or if you have your banana in the box in the wrong configuration, it'll catch that too. Feel free to ask me later what that is if you're curious. And we've also worked on standardizing the arguments CLI, so it makes it more consistent across the board for everybody. And there's a couple of new commands we have as well. So NG Analytics will give you, just from that single command, the ability to look up your analytics settings and view all of the information about it. Additionally, NG Cache will let you enable and disable and delete and get all the information you need about your app's cache. If you're familiar with Core Web Vitals, which is part of Chrome's set of tooling and measurements around user-centric performance on the web, we've actually partnered with Chrome to improve Angular's Core Web Vitals performance across the board. And that partnership has resulted in a 110% improvement in performance for Angular apps as a whole. We have another, the partnership is ongoing with the Chrome team. We're actually working on an image directive to make images more performant within your Angular applications as well. And you can watch for that. That's going to be coming soon. But it's images make up a pretty significant portion of web traffic, and we're trying to make that easier for folks to get it done right. Because the image tag and source set stuff can be real easy to get wrong. Okay, and hydration. If you've ever worked with server-side rendering on a web application, you might be familiar with the concept of hydration. So when you have a server-side render, when it gets rendered on the server side, it builds up your entire DOM for the browser and then sends that down to the client side. Then once it gets to the client side, your client side application downloads, and then there has to be some sort of, it has to figure out that the app exists already on the page and kind of hydrate itself to be like, oh, now we're on the client side application. With Angular, what we've done in that case, server side renders, passes it down, client side downloads, we just wipe the whole DOM and repaint it. That's called descriptive hydration. It works, but it's not the best. So we're going to be looking later this year into other ways that we could potentially do hydration that is less destructive. So that's in our future, and you can watch for that. We have this partnership going on with the Chrome team, but we also have this concept of better together, and that includes working with Firebase, Google Cloud Platform, TensorFlow, and Bazel. They all work really seamlessly together, and those partnerships are going to continue. And if you are interested in seeing our roadmap, we actually have a public roadmap. So you can actually go to angular.io and view it. And also, we welcome feature requests. So head over to our GitHub, submit a feature request, and vote on features that you see out there, because that actually gives us pretty strong signal of what you're looking for. That's pretty much all I have, but before I go, I just wanted to acknowledge that we've had a couple of rough years as a world, and I just want to remind you all that you're all capable people. You're all valid. You're all loved. I want to remind you all to please take care of yourself. It's really important. If you're struggling, please know that you're not alone. All these resources are available to you. Now, please get out there and crush your goals. You're all wonderful people. My name is Jessica Janik. I'm a senior software engineer at Google. You can follow me on these socials. If you have any feedback, please pop over to this survey. Thank you, and live long and prosper, everyone. So I've got about a minute or so. Do you have any questions? Has anybody actually worked with Angular here before? See a couple of hands. Awesome. Well, if no one else has questions, then, man, I'm going to totally mess this up. So I'm going to get my little notes out here. Next up is Ruchi She's a product design engineer at Mona Media. She's also a GDG organizer, so Google Developer Group organizer for this group in New York City. She's also a Women Tech Makers ambassador, so come on up.
Thank you, Jessica. Namaste. I'm Ruchi. Our next speaker has over 25 years of experience growing businesses with innovative communications, interface, intensive applications. Prior to Android, he led R&D as a VP at Orange Activities in North America and was an original principal at Orange Ventures when it was founded. He also developed a voice-based personal assistant. He received his PhD in computer science from the University of Massachusetts at Lowell. It is my pleasure to welcome Android co-founder Rich Miner from Google Ventures.
Hey, Ruchi. Hey, everybody.
Hi, Rich. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Well, it is such an honor to have you with our GDG community here in New York. We're so excited to have you as our guest speaker and learn a lot more about Android and your journey from the past, present, and future. We'd like to reflect on your past first. I want to get to know you a little bit better, Rich. We want to understand what shaped you to who you are today. Take us back down your memory lane and share who were the most inspirational persons in your life and why.
Sure. Yeah. And that memory lane, I need to update my bio. I think it's more like 35 years than 25 years, but there you go. Probably. So there's a few people I'm going to separate and just think of who shaped me. I mean, my dad and, mom, whatever, right? But who shaped me kind of from an innovation and technology standpoint. Probably first on the list is my major professor at University of Lowell that you mentioned. I started working with Professor Krolak when I was doing my undergraduate. I worked with him on my master's and got my PhD under him. And he was just a great collaborator because he believed students could start things, create things, own things, unlike a lot of professors that want to own and control. And I think that let me really experience a lot of my entrepreneurial drive without kind of feeling like I was shackled to a professor that was just having me do their bidding. I could think more creatively. So he's definitely top on the list. He's unfortunately no longer with us. We do have a foundation in his name up at UMass Lowell, helping to put other kids through computer science. Then I think there's another guy after we started, well, Bill Warner, who I helped start Avid Technology with. Avid built the first online video editor. So when you cut and paste video on a computer, Bill in my research lab in the mid to late 80s built the first version of an application that you could cut and paste video. It didn't exist before. And I helped him start Avid, and then together we started Wildfire, which was that voice-based assistant product. I've got when you say, hey, Google, which I'll say that and a bunch of people's phones are gonna wake up, but when you say that word, I have a patent from 1994 on the concept of a voice-based wake-up word for voice assistants from Wildfire and the work that I did with Bill. Bill's on that patent also, and then a number of follow-on patents. So Bill is a great innovator, started that video editing company, started Wildfire, started a bunch of other amazing things. This other guy, Kenny Hirschhorn at Orange, who acquired Wildfire because he was just a crazy guy that had started this group called Imagineering that let you kind of imagine what engineering could be and recreate the world. So he was another great influence. And then probably Andy Rubin, who I started Android with, and also just another great innovator. So, yeah.
Thank you, Rich. Well, you know what? When I was younger, I loved playing arcade games. And I played a lot of Sega games. So I'd like to ask you, what did you like to play when you were in your younger years?
Yeah, so I had a sandbox in my bedroom, and that sandbox was filled with PVC pipes that had mounted in them optical components that I could use to make holograms. So I guess I played with a sandbox when I was younger. That was when I was in junior high. I think junior high, I had my sandbox sitting on inner tubes. That was to stabilize it, because when you're making holograms, you can't have vibrations more than a wavelength of light or so. So you have to have a stable environment. And then the sandbox just held all these little cheap way of having optical components held, so you could have mirrors, half shaded mirrors, a laser, and make your holograms. So yeah, is that it? How's that?
Sandbox it is. Well, let's talk about, at what point did you see your interest growing in the areas of creating and driving change? Because that's what you've done in the world today.
So yeah, I mean, it's been a continuum for me. I mean, as you can hear, I was kind of playing with lasers as a kid in science. And so as far back as I remember, I've been interested in building product and creating, and there's no kind of major inflection point that I can sort of think of. First, I guess for a while, I thought I was going to be in physics, but I was still, even when I thought that, I was tinkering and building electrical circuits and playing with lasers, and at some point I got interested in computers, but I think it was all part of the same process of exploring and building and creating.
Well, okay. Now tell me the story behind the name Android.
Sorry?
I said, now tell me the story behind the name Android.
Oh, yeah, of course, right. We had the website. I mean, Andy had the website. Andy had the domain. And I think that was probably the biggest, if you've got android.com, why not use it? Sorry, that's like, there's no bigger magic to it than that. I think, Andy loved androids and loved robots, which is why he had the domain. But he had the domain, and when he was thinking of building something, but you have to remember, Andy started Android before. There were 4 co-founders for Android, the mobile phone company. Andy had started it a little earlier with this guy, Chris White, trying to build an OS for cameras. Mm-hmm. So they already had the name when Andy realized maybe an OS for cameras isn't going to be successful, and Nick and I started working with him on the idea that no, it really should be an OS for phones, which Andy kind of knew because he had built Danger and done phone stuff before, but he just needed us to give him a little bit of a kick in that direction. So, but it was pretty much just that he had the domain.
Thank you. So let's fast forward to the present. And, as everybody knows, Android is one of the most powerful platforms on the planet. We heard a lot at I/O, and we like to talk to you a little bit about Pixel Tablet, Rich. Google has announced Pixel Tablet that's coming out next year, which will include amazing hardware and an updated operating system. This is the best time for developers to review their apps and get them ready for larger screens and Android 13. What should the developers be thinking about when upgrading their features? What are your thoughts, Rich?
Yeah, so we've started this investment in large screen. Well, of course, a little bit, right? Android was there day one when tablets kind of came onto the scene. Mm-hmm. At least contemporary tablets. If you go back, in history and look at what Alan Kay was doing in the 70s, but then the 80s. But then it was really Microsoft in 2000 had their first tablet PC platform. It was kind of early generation of tablet, but it was really when Apple first announced the iPad, and right about that same time, we came out with that first Motorola tablet, and then the Nexus 7 after that, right? So that was a while ago, and tablets took off back then, right? People like large screen and large screen touchable OSs. You kind of see that from how big our phones are getting. But tablets quickly went to about 200 plus million, about 200 plus million active Android tablets very quickly once we launched the first tablet. The big thing that I think developers should know is that tablets for many years were consumption devices. right? We were just staring at the screen and using them as large, displays to consume YouTube and Netflix and consume media, to give it to our kids to consume media. And the big thing that has started to change is that, that usage has started to change. People now, there's still large screens, but the attach rate for people who are putting keyboards on their tablets is huge. And the attach rate for people who are using stylus, this happens to be the Samsung Galaxy Tab 8, but all the new Lenovo tablets and tablets from many of our other repeats, all coming with stylus and keyboard. And so one of the big shifts that you're seeing in usage is, and this is causing a growth of the tablet market, is that people are now using tablets for productivity. And this happened pre-COVID. We started to see that curve change. During COVID, of course, it took off because so many households needed another screen or two for a child to be productive at school, or a spouse to be, or a partner to be online doing something. And so we saw that really accelerate with COVID, but it actually post-COVID, I wish, as the kind of the COVID crisis has gone from pandemic to endemic or whatever it is, we actually haven't seen tablet sales return to that kind of level. They're below a little bit of the craziness of that early COVID time, but they're still strong sales. And so I think for developers, what you've already started to see released at 12L, right, which was our first large screen OS release in a long time, is that our tablets are starting to look like a great contemporary tablet platform. We have the ability to have multiple windows, larger widgets. Our Jetpack libraries and Compose are now supporting capabilities to support large screen applications. You're going to see that, as we alluded to, continuing as we head towards Android 13, and then continue with each new release of Android. Large screens is going to be a major effort for us. And so I think developers should just really be thinking, not just how do I blow up my application so it works on a large screen? How do I take advantage of what is, going from, relatively hand-sized device to these 10-plus-inch displays? How do I use that real estate differently? How do I think of my app differently on that larger screen to take better advantage of that real estate? And then, if this is really going to become the new productivity device for a lot of people, the stylus, right? Large screen, keyboard perhaps, but you can also pull it off. What does that mean for productivity apps? How are they going to change? Right? I think it's as big a change as we had when people had to think about how to bring apps from a web to mobile, and you thought about mobile first. I think we're going to see a lot of interesting tablet first apps coming from the developer community.
Thank you for that. I mean, I know that my mom, who's in her 80s, uses the tablet for her bone builder class, every week. So it's been a great experience for her. And I know that Google is partnering with Samsung to create a new platform called Health Connect. This will bring connectivity between apps so that they can share user health and fitness data across devices. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, yeah, sure. All of this is really just for us to demonstrate and take advantage of when I left my watch upstairs, but how all of these devices can be better when they're operated together, right? Like, so the real goal is to have, notifications, fitness and biometric data, and health data, and other information kind of flowing, and interests and interactions flowing seamlessly across these different surfaces that are all running Android or Android compatible components. And so Samsung has been a leader in doing this, and with their own devices and ecosystem, they've been helping us learn, and we've also been helping them. We now have Fitbit and other innovations with Android Auto and Google TV. And so the goal was really to start getting all of these platforms to play better together and seamless interactions for the user as the user, focus moves across those different screens, different devices.
Absolutely. I mean, I also, that kind of leads me to like my next point, Android for cars. Now, that's fun to play with. I mean, let's talk about that. And, as we know that two products, Android for cars and Android TV OS, these two products continue to grow and more users drive connected or or a tune-in, Google is introducing new features to make it easier for developers to continue building apps for cars and TVs. Talk to me about this. This is fun.
Yeah, I mean, what I find refreshing here is when we first conceived Android, first of all, we didn't kind of grow to the point that it did, and nobody did because they just didn't think smartphones would get the market penetration they did. But we were pretty focused on that form factor, but we built this really powerful OS that has these other, that has the ability to be leveraged in all of these other platforms. And the exciting thing about Android Auto, and especially what we're doing with a lot of the auto manufacturers that we work closely with, is just like on a watch and integrating biometric information. It's great when Android Auto can bring app ecosystem, but app ecosystem plus the data that's coming in from your car, right? So you can get much better APS information, especially even if you're under a mountain or what have you, right? And you have all that, then you have that connectivity as well. And so, so again, there's challenges there because you have to figure out if you're bringing an app to that surface, how to do it in a distraction-free environment as possible, which really means thinking hard about how to filter the content down and how to filter the interactions down so that you're not taking somebody's attention away from what they're doing. But great integration and voice and the ability to hand off, those capabilities to third parties to leverage them. There's a huge amount of opportunity to continue to build on that platform that as you said, is getting really pervasive in a huge number of autos that have been shipping and leveraging it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, this is this is big. So we're very excited to hear more and learn more, within our developer communities and share what we're creating. Let's fast forward to the future. So I know that earlier on, Rich, you decided not to move to California, and you brought Google to Kendall Square. And you said it's a place crawling with top flight talent. You're known, I'm going to actually quote from the Boston Globe. Minor is more adept at foretelling trends than your most experienced salesman. For our entire community here in Kendall Square, can you elaborate how you navigate a path to finding the next Android?
Yeah, I mean, well, I've been able to do it as an innovator myself, and also as a venture capitalist, both with Orange Ventures, as you mentioned, and Google Ventures, now GV, that we started. The next Android, there's two components of it. One, you look at a little bit more when you should always look at it as an entrepreneur, as VC, but is the people, right? Like as an entrepreneur, I've succeeded, largely because I just hooked up with really smart, good, motivated people, right? I mentioned Danny Rubin, I mentioned Bill Warner. These were people that, really had the seeds of the ideas of the companies that I joined and then helped, bring those ideas to a reality, hone them, and find a market for them. So the best idea in the hands of a not great team or a team with weakness, right? You could be great, but you need to have great people around you that have complementary skills.
Absolutely.
You don't want a bunch of people that have the same skills. If you're a really good engineer, you want somebody who's really good in product, for instance. And so, so part of it is the best idea in the hands of a not great team. Like as a VC, you learn pretty quickly not to invest in this. Doesn't matter how much you love the idea, if it doesn't have the right people behind it, they're just not going to be able to execute, unfortunately, or rarely will they be able to. So hook up with great people. The other thing that I tend to look for, if you look at almost every startup I've been involved in, Android is also just a great example of this. There were what I call a confluence of technologies that were coming together, not one technology, but a combination of them. In the case of voice-based assistants that I started some number of years ago, it was scaled speech recognition and the ability to get access to lots of information and people becoming more mobile, like some combination of those things, that we were doing. And then of course, with current voice-based assistants, really getting that price down. In the case of Android, Or in the case of Bill Warner and video editing, it was really large storage systems, the ability to do real-time graphics and video capture into a computer, like all of those things had to come together for you to build a video editing system. In the case of Android, there's a whole bunch of things. It was the introduction of capacitive touchscreens, which first came out on a phone built by LG for product that let you touch the screen and directly manipulate it. Was big. It was the fact that the systems on a chip, the CPUs and memory, were becoming powerful enough for a low-power device that you could run a full OS like Linux on. It was the fact that the screen resolution of these small screens was getting high enough that you could render content like a web page and be able to browse it. You could have had all of those things, but if you didn't have technology to get you through a day of power, that wouldn't have been sufficient. You could have had all of those things, but if you were still on a 2G network, this would have been kind of an island. You wouldn't have been able to get the data to it that you needed to make it an engaging device, right? It was right at the point when networks were going from 2G to 3G and then ultimately to 4G. So it was that confluence of technologies that really enabled discontinuous leaps in innovation that have pretty much been a part of all of the major products that I've kind of been passionate about and worked on that have had big impact.
Thank you, Rich. I mean, those are such important points, and I think one of the things that you mentioned about community, the people, that's kind of a very, very important part of being successful. So that takes me to the last part of our talk together today, and I think our community here is so excited to ask you some questions, and I hope you're ready for them, especially coming from New York. So if anybody would like to come to the mics on either end of the stage, please feel free to do that now and ask away.
Hi. I'm just wondering, I'm from the co-founder of Android. What do you see as the future of Android, possibly together with Fuchsia and or Chrome?
It's a great question. I mean, I'll speak more towards Chrome because I've had a lot more direct hands-on experience and then it has a huge amount of traction. We were talking about better together before, and that's something that we continue to invest in heavily at Google, and you see the results of it. My phone can now be used to unlock my Chrome OS device. It can be used. I can get notifications back and forth. I can easily transfer photos from my phone to my Chrome OS device, right? So they're starting to come together seamlessly, and we're going to continue to remove the gaps between those products and have, again, those two screens that are part of the Google ecosystem work very well together. You can run Android apps on a Chromebook. You can run progressive web apps on an Android device. And so again, you'll see the investments that our developers are making in both platforms are going to start to see more capabilities in both platforms. In fact, in Google Play, you can have a PW, a progressive web app, an app in Google Play and download an Android phone, and then launch that progressive was Android app. So all of these things are things that we're doing to bring Android and Chrome OS together. I think Fuchsia is still getting a huge amount of investment, and we're but we're not at the point where we're talking about what kind of things the platforms are doing together there.
Thank you, Rich.
Hello, Rich. Thank you for joining. We are honored to have you. We're also streaming this besides the wonderful venue here at Samsung. So we have an online question for you from Alan Furstenberg. He is a Google developer expert in Google Assistant and a regular speaker here. His question is, what are your thoughts about new modalities such as voice only with the Google Assistant and how they will work with Android? Thank you.
Sure. Well, I'm a big fan of multimodal interaction. I think we've done a pretty good job of getting the assistant more and more integrated within Android, right? It's pretty easy. I probably, talking to my phone, it's probably representing almost 20% of my interactions. I'll do a ton of text dictation and other things. You've seen at I/O the amazing work that we're doing with real-time, or the Pixel phone announcement, where we do this real-time translation capabilities, right? So there's a huge amount of integration of voice. The modality I'm most excited about is actually stylus and ink. If you look at Google announced something called Google Practice Sheets from our EDU group recently, and it lets kids do homework assignments with a stylus and answer questions, and in the Canvas real-time kind of grade as they write in the answers. Right, you see on Samsung devices, Lenovo devices with a stylus, where you can write anywhere in the Chrome of an Android app and have that writing turn into text. If you look at what happens and what we've done with voice assistants from first when I was working with them in the late 80s, early 90s, to where they are today, ink is a very similar technology, right? It's an analog input technology, just like voice is. And it can be very expressive. And if you can recognize anything somebody says, then you can start to do a lot with a voice assistant. What if you can recognize anything somebody draws, right? What if you can recognize when they scribble out a slide deck and maybe create a slide deck for them, right? What if you can watch a child solving a math problem and drawing a diagram, and you have a tutor that can understand everything they're drawing and writing? And then what if you start to combine these things, right? You draw a pie chart, converts into a nice looking pie chart, and then you're like, let me see that as a bar chart. And your assistant converts that to a bar chart. Or an architect sketches a 2.5D sketch of a house and says, let me see that in 3D, and it gets rendered in 3D and starts rotating around. So these are all the things that I get very excited about when you start taking a look at what we've done with assistive voice and start bringing gesture, facial expression, stylus, all of those things combined into it, right? I have a camera staring at my face all the time I'm interacting with my devices. If I accidentally delete a file, I'm gonna make, the first thing that's gonna happen is I'm gonna have a facial expression that shows that, oh shoot, I accidentally deleted that file. The OS could recognize the facial expression and undo that delete. These are all futures, but you asked for some futures. So anyways, those are some of the things that I imagine and dream about.
Thank you, Rich.
So first off, thank you so much. When I was young, I could not afford a Mac. So the first app I ever developed was for Android, and I was able to self-teach myself how to program and go straight to 100K no degree. So thank you so much for making an OS for working class people. Thank you. Absolutely. So ridiculously. Thank you. And my actual question is, do you have any opinions on like neurofeedback of like, you have the wave caps that can like read your brain waves, sorta? Do you think that's going to be a viable input option in the future?
Yeah, and by the way, on your first comment, the one thing I still feel bad about, and we don't have a solution for this yet, but especially as you start seeing large screens, and you guys should all kind of ask for this as well. Keyboard, large screen. I'm sad we still can't do native development, right? What I really want, for that vision that you had, is let people build apps for Android on Android, and hopefully we'll start to get there as we see the devices being used more in the productivity realm, and demonstrate that with something like that. So, I certainly believe in having the computer tap into what you're doing, feeling, showing. I talked about gesture, facial expressions. There's certainly other ways to get data from people, right? And Neuralink and other things that people are looking at. But I'm probably not quite there yet with the, matrix. Let's all have a little port on the back of our head that we can plug into, and then our computer can really, bond with us. But that doesn't mean that somebody else won't build it, but not something I'm racing to build.
Maybe something for your next Google venture.
Maybe.
Thank you, Rich. We have one more question.
Oh yeah, I just want to second that thank you, because I remember talking to Andy Rubin like whatever, 12 years ago, 10 years ago at Google I/O and saying I built an app on a Nextel phone and I had to pay like $1,000 to get a certificate to publish it. And Android came along and just said, not if I'm involved in it. And my question is Chrome and Android. Yeah. So it has to do with Chrome and Android. And so that's my question. If you could tell us, because I have a Chromebook and it has Android, but it kind of works and it doesn't. So that's the question part.
Yeah. So, well, first on your first point, believe me, Andy and I both felt your pain. I mentioned I sold my first company to Orange. And one of the things my team did for Orange, we were a division in the US where Orange didn't operate. Orange is a European mobile phone company. It was owned by France Telecom Group. My team built the location API them. And then we wanted to build a few apps on top of the location API. We were a division of Orange. The France Telecom Orange Group sent us a licensing document that was about a 1/4 inch thick, or no, 3/4 of an inch thick, it felt like. That we were supposed to read, review, and execute, even though we were a division of the company, and even though we built the API, like it was just such a pain, as you say, pre-iOS, pre-Android. Part of it, by the way, was these platforms were built by telcos, they were built by handset manufacturers, they weren't built by people who knew developers. And that's really one of the big changes with Android and also with iOS, is you had companies, though I'll note that if everybody remembers, we announced Android and the Android SDK and what was back then called the Android Market, now called Android Play. We announced that before Apple had the Apple App Store and before Apple even announced that they were going to let third parties build apps. It was after we announced all that Apple kind of fast followed and announced the App Store and their third party development environment. Just wanted to get that out there. And so anyways, glad we were able to do that, but Google and Apple both understood developers. On Android, on Chrome OS, yeah, I mean, apologies, Arc++ isn't quite there. We continue to invest in it. I know it has some issues. I know that the platform even, some discoverability issues when you maybe accidentally say, yes, use the downloaded version of Google Docs that's a native Android app, and then it's like, actually, I'd rather use the web version. Then you got to figure out how to find the setting that has it defaulting to the Android version. And so there are known issues. There are issues that we're absolutely working on, getting our story straight about what should be progressive web apps that are going to work great on Chrome OS, when it should be an Android app, and native photo app for Chromebooks is the Android version of that app, right? So there's, So there are things that work well, but there's also work still to do, and we know we're not done.
Thank you. I mean, that is a wonderful journey. Rich, I can't thank you enough from you know what, we're out of time. I'm so sorry. We can always take your question afterwards, and can we email it to you, Rich?
Go ahead, I can take one more.
Okay, we can take one more.
I got a question. So you were talking about like building your team. So what are some like quality or attributes you look for in an individual to join your like team to like make your vision come to fruition?
Yeah, I mean, the important thing, and this is known for Nobel, winning teams as well, as diversity, right? And I know that sounds maybe a little cliche these days, but if you look at the majority of Nobel award-winning teams, chemistry, biology, other disciplines, if you look at them, they have people from many different fields, and other backgrounds. But diversity really helps, and I think people with different opinions, different views, different world experiences, that complement, each other are really important, and important to embrace. And so that's, and then smart, you just want people who are going to be able to think on their feet, and because startups change a lot. Like, you think you're doing something, but then you got to be good at reading that data and making a decision about it and pivoting to do something else. So that's fundamentally important. And then I do, when I have my VC hat on, and I, heard this, I think, first from a good VC friend of mine, Antonio Rodriguez, who works for Matrix Partners, a great VC firm. Antonio was like, I just won't invest unless I see strong product and strong engineering. And you really, that's not that you don't have BD or some other skills or other people around the table, but you really want to have, if for a tech startup, you want to have strong engineering and strong product. And that can occasionally be in one person, but again, it's better if they're complementary skill, it can be debated between two people. Single person startups don't perform as good as founders, where there's more than one and you've got somebody who you can bang the ideas off of. The other thing I'll say, and I've been fortunate, with this one as well, it's kind of right time, right place. Like you can have all the other ingredients, but WebOS was a great OS, right? That, started with Paul Mercer and some other smart people, and ultimately, bought by I think Palm, HP, but it was too late. There was already Android and there was already iOS, and so it didn't matter what other, it's really hard at this point, though there's still lots of innovation. People are talking about, maybe you could build an OS based on multimodal your innovation, but certainly if you were just trying to build something that was a lot like Android and iOS today, you're just going to have trouble getting into the market and penetrating. And so right time, right place is also important. And with that,
thank you.
I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but glad to be able to talk to everybody.
Very good points. Thank you so much. A round of applause for Rich Miner. Thank you so much for participating in our Google Developers Group community here in New York. Thank you again from all of us.
Thanks all.
Our next speaker is Lan Guan, Global Data and AI Lead Senior Managing Director at Accenture, and we'll talk to you about using AI to accelerate innovation.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Lan Guan. I lead data and AI business in Accenture Technology. So I believe I have one of the coolest jobs in Accenture, helping clients make sense of their data and also work with all kinds of clients to help them, unlock value from enormous amount of data assets they have. So in my job, I work with all kinds of ecosystem partners, including Google Cloud, very, very extensively. That's why I'm super excited to be here today to talk to you about one of the topics that I'm very passionate about, AI and robotics in manufacturing. Okay, let's jump right in. So if I ask you who are the icons of AI in manufacturing, you may be off the immediate thought of, it's a Tesla, Gigafactory, or Amazon drones, or smart warehouses. But let me offer you a very different example today. Okay, so have you ever wondered how clay is turned into a ceramic toilet? So today, let me start with this example where AI has changed the face of manufacturing in a very traditional industries where a century-old craft is made. So I have to tell you, this story is very close to my heart because the transformation happened in the place where I grew up in China. Okay, so let's roll the video. So much of the grueling technical work has been replaced by glazing. For many of you who don't know, glazing is actually a process of applying glazed slurry onto the surface of a shaped ceramic in this particular industry. So since ancient times, brushes were used, right? They, that's how the glazing was done. Now, and also the glazing process can cause disease because it's hazardous to many, many workers. So now the glazing application robots have taken over, and these robots can perform the glazing, can spray the glaze slurry, right, with 3 times of the efficiency of humans, and also with 100% uniformity rate. As you also see on the video here, handling and palletizing robots, they can move this 100 kilograms of toilets across the production floor with ease, which typically would take 6 to 8 workers. And also high magnification cameras can perform quality control, quality inspections of all these toilets just on the production tables, which within only 35 seconds, much faster than what humans can do in this case. And you also see hundreds of advanced guided vehicles, what they call AGVs, the zipping around the production floor, allow the allow the plant managers to reconfigure the plant layouts very efficiently. So just to put the cherry on the top, in this case, the entire factory was actually retrofitted with more than 1,000 sensors, right? IoT sensors, so that the data transmission can be done on low latency and high bandwidth 5G plus kind of environment. So what's the takeaway from this story? To me, this story illustrated many multiple priority areas for manufacturers to keep in mind. I don't know if there's anything wrong with the mic. Okay, all right. I thought you guys couldn't hear me. Okay, fine. Yeah, so illustrated several key areas for manufacturers to think about AI in manufacturing, this kind of AI evolution as a very fruitful journey. I think there are 3 stages of evolution I want to quickly cover off here. For example, the first step is what we call the intelligence, right? Intelligence of a single device. And this is basically the new glazing master in my story earlier. So in this case, manufacturing companies, they can quickly spring into the era of AI by enlisting robots, right, to do very repetitive tasks that humans are used to be doing, such as welding, painting, lifting, or palletizing, or assembling heavy objects. But there's so much more robots can do, especially the cloud robots. So especially the cloud robots. I don't know, can you guys hear me? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we should look around the production floor to identify more sophisticated and highly variable tasks for these robots to do. Let me give you 2 quick examples. Agriculture is actually a very good example where robots can be doing, can adapt to the high, part-to-part variability. For example, in Japan, these robots, they have demonstrated ability to cut down the time required for to harvest strawberries by 40%, and using the imaging system, right, stereoscopic kind of imaging system to assess the the ripeness of the strawberries. In jewelry industries, you hear all kinds of examples. Robots also can be used to cut the precious gemstones, again, in using cloud robots in the cloud, to basically this is a task that used to be done by highly skilled craftspeople. So, but from our perspective, in order for you to have a truly smart and digitized factory, we actually need to move on to the second stage of the slide here, which is what I call the authentic intelligence. So in this case, think about robots become your line managers, right? Line managers on the production floor, now they are actually using all this data in the cloud to make unbiased and very informed decisions. And this this is the power of authenticity. So I don't know if there's any lean manufacturing experts in this case, but basically, this is analogous to the lean methodology, which has 3 key goals. Very straightforward. Improve quality, eliminate waste, and maximize productivity. So again, in this case, moving on for manufacturers to move on to the second stage to leverage this kind of authentic intelligence of the robotics is very important. So the third stage of the evolution is actually what we call the augmented intelligence. So in this case, it's basically when you combine the machine-centric kind of artificial intelligence with creative power of human intelligence. That's where you get the augmented intelligence. It's quite a mouthful. So again, this is a good example. Is in this case, robots can actually leverage AI to become your eyes and ears on the production floor. Using, like, for example, with 2D and 3D machine vision, robots can develop its situational awareness and also improve mobility and dexterity on the production floor, so that it can actually take on very sophisticated tasks for manufacturers. So to me, thinking about robots and actually see and hear things and working side by side with human workers, human teammates, passing tasks back and forth, isn't that the very cool production scene that we have all dreamed about? So if this is exciting, why haven't we done this overnight? Why haven't we seen this kind of innovation all over the place? So it's very important for us to remind the manufacturing companies that this kind of, as they get very serious about investing, right, in AI and robotics, what we always talk about is the process of a change could take a long time. Okay, it's like turning a cruise ship around. So what are some common gotchas? Let me just share a couple of them here. The first challenge is still data. Okay, volume, variety, and velocity of the data being generated on the production floor could be daunting very, very quickly. So again, in this case, they are not your traditional kind of data across different business functions. This kind of a specialty machine data, they need to be categorized, they need to be collected using a very specific technology, which I will talk a little bit later about. So in this case, specialty data, what do I mean by that? These are the data from all kinds of IoT sensors, data from programmable logic controllers, data from human and machine interface, data from advanced guided vehicles. Okay, so machine data is very, very different. So the good news is, at least that's my experience, there are a lot of technology partners out there. They are already, making innovations to handle this kind of data complexity, specifically, data fusion capabilities to contextually stitch together this kind of what we call the IT, information technology data, OT, right, operational technology data, and also ET, engineering technology data together, so that manufacturers, they don't have to navigate in the dark. I hope Google is actually one of them. So with the recent announcement of Google's Google Cloud's manufacturing solution, actually just this month, I think Google is no stranger, right, to solve this kind of data challenges facing by many manufacturers when they think about adopting AI for smart factories. So this particular solution actually has two parts. The first part is the Google Cloud, manufacturing data engine. So what does that do? It's actually a foundation to data model, data layer for processing, contextualizing, and also storing all kinds of factory data. So it actually has lots of building kind of data normalization routines, and also multiple common data models for manufacturing companies. So the next part is actually the Machine Connect, Google Machine Connect. That sits on top of the machine data engine that I just talked about. And what's really good about this Machine Connect is you can think about that as basically the out of the box innovation, which supports more than 250 machine communication protocols, the containerized kind of workloads. So what that means is manufacturers, they will be able to leverage these two solutions combined to process large amount of machine data, and also leverage low latency and very fast data transmission of the private 5G network, so that this kind of analysis, this kind of machine learning models can actually be trained on the edge. So that's the data challenge. The second challenge I always talk about is algorithmic architecture. Okay, so that's the second box on my slide here. What do I mean by that? This is not your traditional or legacy IT infrastructure. So this is the very modern kind of architecture designed and built for a very extensive kind of computing environment. So thousands of what we call the privacy preserving algorithms, they could get compute intensive very, very quickly. Millions of sensors and devices, they need to be able to transmit data back and forth, right? Very fast, almost real time. So all this put very stringent kind of architecture on the many manufacturers. So again, it's very important for them to invest, and modernize their traditional IT infrastructure in order to be, be able to, take on new challenges of AI and robotics. So I can give you one example. Actually, one of my clients, Stellantis and Tim Brazil, these are the two Brazilian companies, and Accenture, we're working together to actually develop, this 5G, private 5G network in one of the, Stellantis, plants in the automotive center of northeastern Brazil. So specifically what Stellantis is doing is actually using 5G and computer vision to capture images of every vehicle, moving along the assembly line, and with very high bandwidth and low latency of the data being transmitted on the 5G network. Guess what? Now they will be able to do run computer vision model to do real-time quality inspection of the vehicles right on the edge, real time. So to me, that's a great example of how all these technologies come together on an algorithmic architecture to do the magic for manufacturers. All right, the third impact is the ethics. Okay, I want to mention that with all this excitement about AI and the robotics in traditional industries, we cannot ignore the topic of ethics, the anxiety created by that. And I have to tell you, there's no black and white answer. Okay, Many of you probably think that, okay, when robots arrive, automations, all this, highly automated things, tasks will take away jobs. Actually, it turned out in many situations, that's not the case. We have also seen many examples where more jobs are actually getting created because of the, maybe because of the human modeling, or maybe because of the new demands created by technology. I will also give you one number here. So if you pay attention to the January labor report, employment report in the US, there are 10 million jobs open, okay? But we only have 8 million people in the active labor force. So you can figure out the gap. How do we fill the gap? Of course, automation is a big driving force there. So again, I just want to leave that with you. Think about the job impact. Think about the ethical impact. There's no black and white answer. Okay, what is the last box here? So the last box here is actually for me to just quickly talk to you about the ESG impact. ESG stands for environmental, societal, and governmental impact. Okay, it's such a hot topic. And why do I talk about that here in the topic of, in the context of AI and robotics in manufacturing? Because I believe, the focus, right, in AI and manufacturing, the shifts, right, to the smart factories also very unique opportunity for for industry to think about ESG impact, and so that this doesn't become an afterthought, right? For example, again, one example I want to share with you. Again, one of my clients, Schneider Electric. Okay, they actually have smart factories in Kentucky, here in the United States, and what they have done there is basically, again, use robotics and 5G to integrate their IoT, right, Internet of Things devices with power meters. Okay, so now they will be able to track, energy consumptions on the production floor on the real-time basis, and as a result of that, they are able to reduce energy usage by 26% just within a couple of months. They're also to achieve the net carbon reduction by about 30%, and also reduce water usage in that plant by more than 40%. So embracing AI with ESG mindset, in Schneider's case, has actually won them a very prestigious kind of, superior energy performance award certification, actually, by US Department of Energy. Again, just want to share with you, this is just one example. When you combine AI and ESG, there's really, really good things happen. All right, so what does the future bring? This is a question that people always ask me. What does the future bring, right? What are the next frontier of AI and robotics in manufacturing? I always tell people that it's a very exciting time, and to think about, what are the other cool things, technologies, innovations that we can bring into manufacturing industries. Again, by working with a lot of cloud providers like Google Cloud, I think there's huge amount of the potential. And I think one example I want to give you is clearly there are a lot of companies, they're already thinking of beyond just AI and robotics in production plants, right? In the physical production plants. BMW, they have actually partnered with NVIDIA to build its first virtual factory in metaverse. So that's the news that came out a couple months ago. And in this case, the plan is actually to, to build the entire production line, right, for BMW cars, right, in the Omniverse platform provided by NVIDIA. So what does that mean, right? So again, the Omniverse platform, in this case, unlike other AIs that I've been talking about earlier, actually it has the ability to automate the entire production process with photorealistic images to simulate the whole production process in a virtual world, and also allows the simulation of the digital avatars of human workers, right? Doing all kinds of things on the production floor, like grabbing parts and components, passing tasks back and forth. And all this can be simulated in the Omniverse platform so that, manufacturers will be able to figure out, okay, what is the, best procedure to do this XYZ things? And how do you minimize ergonomic problems for workers? And also how many workers do we need actually on each job? All this very tough, operational questions now can be answered in Metaverse. So this is just one example of exciting things that we're thinking about looking into the future. So in summary, hopefully I have convinced you a little bit that this is a really, really exciting space. It's a very industrial topic. Hopefully you don't get lost here, but enormous amount of opportunities out there in traditional industry for AI and robotics. That's why I'm very excited to work with partners like Google Cloud to bring the most innovative solutions to this kind of traditional industries. And I want to end my presentation by sharing with you one of my beliefs, okay? I do believe over the next couple years, you'll be hearing many, many stories like what I told earlier, right? What happened in, other parts of the world, what happened here, across different industries. I believe every story will remind ourselves what you are seeing in the picture here. Industrial park with AI and robotics can actually be more exciting than amusement parks if we can, help unleash, right, the wisdom and the full power of AI and robotics. Okay, so that's my thank you for listening to the presentation, and I'll open up for some questions. Anyone have questions? Oh, go ahead.
Hi. So the question about the ethics part of it. So I know on a procedural side, on a technology side, thinking about introducing the technologies and the loss of the thought about possibly losing jobs. Is there, I guess, from a policy or project standpoint, thinking about upskilling current labor forces in the pipeline so that they can interface better with these technologies, so that you do capture the knowledge of the existing labor force and possibly use that to help to improve the technology and also create pathways for those those trades to continue to be to continue in a more modern way. So that's my question.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, and I think this is also what I'm seeing in the industry, right? There's no black and white answer, but also many clients that I have worked with, or institutions, I think they are all paying attention to the upskilling. In fact, not just upskilling of the existing workers, also reskilling. There are fundamental differences, right? Upskilling in a lot of cases means, okay, if you're doing, this task, then you're moving on to another job, right? But it's still within the same track. In fact, we've seen many clients that we work with, they embrace the new potential to actually reskill, right? Reskill people so that, they can also be leveraging the modern technology to unleash new potential. For example, customer service agents, with modernization of the technology. Now they have the possibility to actually go through reskilling, training kind of journey to actually become, digital assistant trainer. Okay, so that's a very, very good point.
One more question.
Sure.
And again, you know, trade agreements, labor agreements, things like that. Are there conversations being had at the technology level or at the AI level about how to approach those very old agreements and relationships that exist in manufacturing industries?
Can you clarify a little bit?
Okay,
Yeah.
so context. I'm a mechanical engineer. We're a lot, primarily vehicles. So I know working in those environments, I see in technology, there's a lot of speak about, you know, unionizing even happening on the technology side. But in those hardware technologies, especially in the United States, these there are unions that exist that have their employees, you know, best interests in mind. And again, you know, those organizations, there's opportunity there, of course, to improve the way that their labor force does work. But there's, like you said, there's fear about, you know, the loss of jobs. So are there conversations, are there considerations in the technology that are considering those existing labor agreements to respect them? And then, like you said, reskill or integrate with them to show them the value, not just on the technology or the work side, but also on the managerial and administrative side and the contract administration side.
Yeah, I think I definitely see that is happening. You know, I think the details will be actually varying by different industries. But I think at least, you know, I would say 9 out of 10 clients that I'm working every day here in the US, you know, I think again, keeping this kind of ethical impact in mind and, you know, using, in fact, a lot of the reskilling, upskilling, and relooking at a lot of agreements, things that you talk about, is being done by AI, at least partially, okay?
Hi.
Hello.
So earlier you were talking about how AI, instead of like the concerns of losing jobs, so on and so forth, that there was actually a growth or a shift in job roles that were offered from just the development of AI technology. So I was just wondering if that was in regards to engineering. Is it like just like kind of like a technological managerial positions that are opening up due to just the ever expanding amounts of AI? Like what kind of jobs are opening and what kind of opportunities are now being offered?
Sure. No, the short answer to your question, I think it's more than just engineering jobs. Okay. I actually think that the one thing that I haven't even talked about is how human and machine work together, right? So I think, again, because of that kind of modernization, because of the new mindset shift, what we are going to see is actually new roles being introduced into the like manufacturing kind of environment, right? So it's no longer just engineering or the typical roles that you would think about. For example, we talk about we may need more psychologists. Right. We may need more counselors, right? In this kind of manufacturing setting. Why? Because now a lot of a lot of physical tasks are being done by robots, right? By machines. Now human can actually move on to do more, things that, higher order things that we're really good at. So being creative, being empathetic, right? So that's why I'm excited about the potential. Okay?
So it gives more space sort of to the human element, like AI kind of allows that. And that's kind of like the implication?
Absolutely. You got it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Carlos. I am also a computer science student. And I guess my question is more of like a personal belief, or maybe not personal. I guess a lot of people may share this. How do you feel that from a certain age where we used to watch these things on like TV, how do you feel us as humans have been able to take what we had as just simple ideas or art, aliens, androids, robots, and we're actually putting it into play and into perspective in our everyday lives? How do you feel like, what is like, because this is kind of like nostalgic to me. So I'm asking, like, basically, how do you feel us progress of humanity and going forward?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a great question too. I think overall I'm very optimistic, right, about the impact of AI. I don't think it's going to be a zero sum game. I actually think it's going to be a very positive sum game for the society as a whole. That's why I have many things I can talk about today, but I picked this one, right? May not be the super familiar, topic to everyone here. Oftentimes we neglect to talk about traditional industry. When we think about AI, we always think about what Facebook does, what the Google does, or Amazon does, all these digital native companies. But in fact, enormous amount of potential, right, is actually exists in traditional industries like agriculture, like forestry, like manufacturing. So I think I want to answer your question in a way that I don't think this is sci-fi movie anymore. Actually a reality. I'm glad to hear that you are a student in computer science. I think you are definitely in the right profession. Okay, I think that's for us to keep in mind. I want to end the call to remind everyone that it's important to think about how robots work together with humans, right? They are not siloed, okay? For us to maximize the societal impact of this kind of technological innovations, we have to make sure, machine and humans work together very, very seamlessly. Okay?
Hello everyone, I'm Jason Mays, Developer Relations Engineer for TensorFlow.js here at Google, and today we'll be covering what's new in TensorFlow.js for 2022. Now, if you're new to WebML, TensorFlow.js is Google's machine learning library for JavaScript, and it's just like the original that came out in Python, but it's aimed at folk who code in JavaScript or Node.js instead. This allows more developers to use machine learning without having to learn a new language and use their creations in even more places than ever before, as JavaScript can run pretty much anywhere. From client-side to server-side, mobile native to desktop native, and even IoT devices like a Raspberry Pi, JavaScript is one of the few languages that can run in all of these locations without any additional dependencies. And currently, over 68% of professional developers use JavaScript in production. All of these users can potentially benefit from adding machine learning models to their web application. And what are those benefits? Well, by running in the browser, you can achieve privacy as no sensor data needs to be sent to the cloud for inference. Or how about lower latency for real-time performance with direct access to the device? And of course, lower costs as fewer server-side resources need to be kept running. You also get zero install for a frictionless user experience, and you can use any of our demos in just one click of a link and reach your audience of billions instantly with no complex environment setup in a way people can share with ease. And if you're new to machine learning, we're pleased to announce that we've just launched a brand new course for web and creative folk who are new to this industry but familiar with web technologies. Here you can go from zero to hero in machine learning in JavaScript and bring your creative ideas to life with TensorFlow.js. This course will teach you how to use machine learning in the browser to create next-generation web apps with superpowers from object recognition to text understanding and much more. Enroll today for free using the link on this slide and go at your own pace. Furthermore, following many requests from the community, we're pleased to announce the launch of the Coral Edge TPU support in Node.js via a special build of a library called tfjs-tflite-node. This will allow JavaScript developers to load and use any TF-Lite model and execute it on a connected TPU edge device within the Node.js ecosystem. So if you own a Raspberry Pi and you're looking to do low latency model inference on such a device, you now can, and keep all your code in JavaScript without needing to learn a new language. Check the code lab linked to learn how to use this feature. Now, on the subject of learning about TensorFlow.js, let's check a few examples of how people are using this knowledge with projects made by our global community.
I use Three.js, which is a JavaScript library, which allows you to visualize a 3D object, attract the face of the user with a pre-trained face tracking model in TensorFlow.js. It moves as I move, so it works left or right or up and down.
That really pops out of the screen. That's amazing. It's so realistic.
What we created was a sports platform that helped teams, amateur teams, such as myself, to access sports performance data and statistics easily. So we created a platform that enables both coaches and players to use artificial intelligence and TensorFlow models to generate the performance statistics they need to understand why are they winning games or not winning games, and how can they improve their performance, whether it's from a conditioning or from a skills perspective. And that is, in a nutshell, is team sport.
What you're seeing is a very short looping video clip of a martial artist doing his routine. And what I'm doing is using PoseNet to extract the pose of the different body and extruding it in both time and space in augmented reality. So that you get the form/visualization.
This project was made as a sort of demonstrator project to show how can we make autoencoders, how can we use them in TensorFlow.js. We're sampling not digits, the MNIST data, but a different data set, the Celeb A data set, which is a really great data set of celebrity faces.
We try to see how could we make a website that you could just interact with just your hands. So you need to do like a drag gesture to move things around, and you need to do like hover your hand over an object to kind of select it, and then spread your fingers to click it.
So TensorFlow.js, I realized that all the building blocks were in place now, and I could actually build an end-to-end system that would solve Sudoku puzzles in your browser. And you can see it's scanning the puzzle and solving it as we scan over the images in the newspaper.
So a couple of months ago, we open sourced this project called Pose Animator that allow you to use your body to animate your SVG characters. SVG, as it is, still requires quite a bit of design expertise to create, but we want to lower the bar even further so that anyone can create a character and animate them.
Recently, I've been exploring using TensorFlow.js with imagery. If you think about looking at a map and you see it's almost like a photo draped across the world. So that's satellite imagery. So we've been looking at using satellite as well as drone and UAV imagery to recognize objects. And fundamentally, if we look at the TensorFlow.js sample website, we've got the webcam sample where you can show an object and it can show back what that is. You can do the same techniques with imagery in GIS.
Okay. As you can probably tell, I'm a huge fan of VTubers, which is why I'm currently in this form. I've been working on a lot of VTuber web apps that allow you to do real-time motion capture directly in the browser.
I was thinking, okay, and could we do this in JavaScript using TensorFlow.js? And
here it is.
Here it is. It works. In the terminal, we start the driving script, which uses the model we have built to drive a car. And you can see it drives. It knows only two commands. The positive value is turn right and the negative value is turn left. And the car drives pretty well.
Wow, some amazing projects there by our community, and many of these leverage our pre-made models that you can use in just a few lines of code, even if you've got no background in machine learning. And on this slide, you can see all the models we released, with several new updates for 2022 highlighted in bold that I'll walk you through shortly. You can use our models across many areas like vision, body understanding, text, and sound in just a few lines of JavaScript code. Check out tensorflow.org/js/models to see them all as we add even more over time. Okay, so what model updates are new for 2022? Well, first up, we're pleased to announce the launch of a brand new selfie depth estimation model that's capable of estimating the distance from each pixel to the camera as illustrated by the images on this slide. Now, if you can understand the depth of the human body in an image, you can do some amazing things. For example, enabling 3D photos live in the browser. Here, a single image is passed through the selfie depth estimation model, allowing the user to produce a subtle 3D effect that can bring the image to life. Or how about image relighting, as shown in this demo? Here, the user is able to use 3.js, a 3D graphics library, and custom shaders to cast light rays in the scene, as the depth information is now known for the person's body. Next, we also launched a 3D pose estimation model in collaboration with MediaPipe, a research team here at Google, that can estimate 33 key points on a human body in real time. This model has three forms: a light, full, and heavy version, which allows you to select a trade-off between accuracy or speed. The light model, for example, can run at 150 frames per second on a modern desktop computer. And already, we've seen the VTuber community embrace this new 3D pose estimation model with virtual avatars that can be used to join live streams or digital meetings in a real-time manner using nothing more than a regular webcam, and can work on any device with a web browser. Really impressive work, and we look forward to seeing what you create with these new models too. Continuing our MediaPipe collaboration, we also released a brand new body segmentation model. Here you can now retrieve a segmentation mask showing which pixels belong to a human body versus those that do not, as shown in the animation. Even better, as this expands upon the pose estimation model you just saw, it's able to do this with minimal additional overhead. In fact, this model is now part of our unified pose API linked on. You need both pose and body segmentation returned at the same time. Furthermore, it's both faster and more accurate than our previous BodyPix model you might have tried before, and on a modern desktop, the lighter segmentation model 120 frames per second. Now, related to this, there's also a version of this model that's optimized for selfie segmentation, allowing you to create effects like the one shown here, where you can change the background in a video conferencing app for privacy. In fact, this model is a modified version of the one we use on Google Meet for video conferencing here at Google. Now, this version of the model is better suited for close-ups as shown, where the user is less than 2 meters from the camera. It can run at over 200 frames per second on a modern desktop computer and is available via our unified segmentation API on the link shown. Next, let's turn our focus to our hands. Updates to the hand pose model now enable tracking of multiple hands simultaneously in 3D and 2D with a higher precision than before when trying to estimate more extreme angles. On a modern desktop computer, it can run over 120 frames per second. This new model could be used to help enable gesture recognition like sign language interpretation or even novel human-computer interaction opportunities. So what will you make? It's time to get creative. Moving to the face, we're also updating our face landmark detection API that builds upon the existing face mesh model you may have already tried. This new API has even higher accuracy and detail for face landmark movements and is based on the latest MediaPipe model that was developed in alignment with Google's AI principles. As you can see from the demo shown, it can run at over 130 frames per second in the desktop browser on a modern computer. Try it out for yourself on the link shown, and furthermore, this API now supports a lightweight option that just returns bounding boxes and 6 key points of a face for faster performance on less powerful devices. Now in TensorFlow.js, you can run existing pre-made models like you just saw, leverage transfer learning to create new custom models for your own use cases, or write models completely from scratch, all in JavaScript. And it should also be noted that TensorFlow.js is now able to support the execution of other forms of TensorFlow models, either directly or through a command line converter, giving JavaScript developers a whole suite of options for using machine learning in their web apps. Currently, we can digest and run TensorFlow Lite, MediaPipe, TensorFlow Hub, and even TensorFlow Python models after conversion with our command line tool, which can help you get even more eyes on your research with an audience far larger than before, as the web is designed to have high shareability with a single link. And on that note, our benchmarking tooling has been upgraded to also support TF-Lite models directly in the browser. Here, you can simply reference any TF-Lite model as shown and get key performance metrics returned to help you understand the performance on any device you wish to run it on, allowing you to select the best model to deploy in production with confidence. Which brings us on to backends. TensorFlow.js supports multiple backends that you can choose to execute on. Now note that by backend here, I do not mean server-side. This is a special term indicating what client-side hardware the machine learning model will run on. On the left, you've got the CPU, which is always available, essentially vanilla JavaScript, but it's the slowest form of execution running on the computer's processor. Now, you also have WebAssembly for faster CPU execution, which for smaller models can even match client-side graphics card performance due to advances for this web API. You then have WebGL that can leverage the graphics card, or GPU if you will, which supports 97.6% of devices out there, greatly expanding the range of devices you can perform machine learning on in a very fast manner. Now, focusing on the WebGL backend, in 2021, we observed that some users who are using larger models here noticed a user interface block whilst initializing the model on the GPU. Due to the size of such models, the first load and initialization can take several seconds to complete and would use 100% of the GPU resources available, which a browser also uses to repaint the web page. We're pleased to announce that TensorFlow.js now implements a solution to this, enabling jank-free web apps when loading larger machine learning models, as shown in the animation on this slide. In the top image, the interface is blocked from repainting itself, but in the updated version below, the information is rendered instantly. Just be sure to be using the latest version of the TensorFlow.js library to get this update for free. We've also launched a new API function in our 3.13.0 release to extend the ways you can return data from a tensor to enable more efficient GPU-based pipelines. You can now simply call tensor.data2GPU to keep the data in the graphics card memory as a texture, enabling a huge performance boost if you're able to keep all your post-processing on the graphics card too, without needing to inspect the raw data in JavaScript on the CPU. This works just like existing tensor datasync functions you might be used to in TensorFlow.js, but is particularly important when dealing with dense data coming back from, for example, segmentation models where pixel-level data is returned. In those cases, that data transfer to the CPU can take a non-trivial amount of time due to its size. In the demo shown here, syncing segmentation data to the CPU to inspect and then rendering to Canvas 2D results in 15 frames per second. But if you keep the data on the GPU with this new function and render that texture directly to Canvas 3D, you can get over 90 frames per second instead. Check the link for more. And finally, looking towards the future, we're seeing new web standards being formed, namely WebNN and WebGPU, which we're also investigating to accelerate performance even further. And today, we're pleased to announce that the TensorFlow.js WebGPU backend is now available. And here you can see just a few models we've tested on the new WebGPU alpha backend. Many existing models will get a boost by running on WebGPU, like our body pick segmentation model, which previously took 44.6 milliseconds to run on WebGL, but now takes just 21.7 milliseconds to run on WebGPU on the same machine. We encourage you to try your models on this new backend to see how they might perform on WebGPU in the future when it's more generally available and enabled by default on modern web browsers. For now, you will need to enable a browser flag to try this alpha feature out. More details are provided on the link shown. And with that, I'd like to leave you with a few resources you can use to get started or go further with TensorFlow.js. First up, check out our growing collection of code labs at codelabs.developers.com. You can simply search TensorFlow.js on this site to find a whole bunch of useful step-by-step guides as they come out from the TensorFlow.js team here at Google. And if there's one side you want to screenshot, here are some links that you might want to bookmark. First, you can find our official website for more details on the library itself, and of course, a full API on the link at the top of this slide. Or check out even more of our pre-made models as they come out using the second link. You can view our open source code on GitHub and even make a contribution if you're up for the challenge. We are fully open source after all. Next, check out the official TensorFlow forum, which is a great place to ask more technical questions and is monitored by the TensorFlow.js team. Just remember to tag your post with TFJS so we can find it. Now, we've also got code examples for you to use and can fork in minutes, itch.com and open.io that provide working boilerplate code to get started really fast. Naturally, these examples will continue to grow over time, so do check them out. And if you're looking for inspiration, head on over to our short 10-minute interviews on YouTube via our Made with TensorFlow.js series. Here, I interview people who have made great things using machine learning in JavaScript on the official TensorFlow YouTube channel, which may just give you some ideas for your next project or find some interesting folks to connect with from the community. Either way, it's a great way to fill a coffee break with these bite-sized videos or share to others who might be interested to learn more about what's going on with machine learning in JavaScript. Now, the only thing left to say at this point is, what will you make? Come join our growing community. Machine learning really now is for everyone. Creatives, artists, musicians, no matter what your background. And I hope TensorFlow.js can enable more people than ever before to start their journey with machine learning. There are too many examples coming out every single month to fit in a single presentation, so check out the hashtag MadeWithTFJS on social, such as Twitter and LinkedIn, to see what people are making around the world. And if you make something using TensorFlow.js, be sure to use the tag for a chance to be featured at our future events, and I really look forward to seeing what you create. And with that, thanks for watching. You can connect with me directly if you've got any questions around WebML or TensorFlow.js using the social links on the left. And of course, if you're wanting to further your knowledge, check out the links on the right and take our brand new course that will take you from zero to hero with machine learning in JavaScript. That's all from me, and I'll see you next time. Hello there, New York. I hope you enjoyed the talk, and sorry I couldn't make it in person, but I'm here live right now to take your questions. WebML in JavaScript is growing really fast, so please do come forward and ask away. Stunned silent, maybe. That's all fine too. If you've got questions after the show, you can always reach me on Twitter as well. That's completely fine. But if you do have questions about web machine learning, feel free to do so now.
Yes. Hi, Jason. We're so happy to see you. I know you wanted to be here, but that was awesome. I do have a question. Can you tell us what is your favorite example of how you use TensorFlow.js? I feel like the technology is amazing, but how do people connect the dots? What is a practical use case that you love?
The one that is really growing in popularity right now is in the healthcare industry. There's a company called Include Health who've taken our MoveNet model and they're using that to do remote physiotherapy at scale. So obviously in the current times, over the last few years, it's been hard for people to get mobile and move around. And now they can actually have a physio exam from the comfort of their home and using our models, understand the range of motion, their joints and all this kind of stuff to a medical grade quality. And we're starting to see a whole bunch of stuff come out in that space, including 3D brain scans in 3D segmentation and all this other kind of stuff too, sports fitness and all of that. So I'm really excited to see where those industries go. And they're really embracing the kind of offline nature of TensorFlow.js and the privacy of that as well.
Thank you so much. Of course, this is so important. It's a breakthrough for health medicine.
No problems. Any other questions or one more?
We have one more.
Perfect. Yep. Come on down.
Hi.
Hi there.
There's a lot of great articles about how people use TensorFlow for accessibility to help people with various disabilities. Is there information about if the developer who wants to use TensorFlow has a disability, say is blind, how well does this work with assistive technology?
That's a great question. In terms of using TensorFlow for these things, we have seen a lot of people use this in human-computer interaction, that kind of stuff, even like eye tracking to be able to control the mouse on the screen and that kind of stuff. So we are seeing some advances in that area. In terms of programming with TensorFlow, if you have a disability, you'd probably have to make use of the existing technology on your computer to interface with the computer to do that. However, some of these technologies that we've shown today could enable those things to work better potentially as well. So I think if people put their creative hats on and see how they can use those in those ways, we could see a whole bunch of innovation in that space as well.
Thank you.
Cool. Any more questions? Okay. If not, well, thank you very much for listening today. And of course, feel free to connect with me on social. I'm at Jason_Mays on Twitter. And of course, don't forget to grab your TensorFlow.js sticker swag if you're in person in New York. But now it's time to head on to David and Alexis.
Hello, New York. Thank you very much, Jason. I'm really excited about the TensorFlow work. I've been in AI and machine learning myself for about 30+ years, and I think this is some of the most exciting stuff I've seen and so amazing to work with. We're going to start ours with Alexis and I with a couple of videos showing our platform. The first video that we're going to show right now is actually showing our white label platform used by university, community organizations, incubators, and accelerators to help guide people through the process of innovation, no matter kind of what their project, not just technology projects. We work in manufacturing and engineering and all kinds of areas. So if we could kind of get started with that one, and then we can have some context about the future conversation.
Hi, I'm Alexis, CEO of WeTransact, and I'm going to take you through the WeTransact app. We are an innovation platform, and we work with universities which have entrepreneurial programs and innovation centers to help innovators take their idea to ROI. When you first log into the Progressive Web app, this is an app that is white labeled, so all of our universities can have their own branded experience and be the hero for their entrepreneurs. The universities, after you log in as a student, participating in any of these entrepreneurial programs or innovation center activities, events, workshops, whatever it may be, they will land here on the Kanban board. The Kanban board is a mobile first Kanban board, which we're very excited to show here today. You can click to move any task that has been assigned to you to working or done. You can also, of course, move it backwards if it was a recent activity. And the interactive layer here, this is the layer that pops up on a mobile device so that you can use a Kanban board. If you've ever tried to use a Kanban board on a mobile device, it's definitely not friendly for this interface. So you can also see in our mobile interaction layer that pops up that you can click help, and help will give the instructions. So it's not only interactive layer for doing something on the Kanban board or interacting with that element in the app, but it also acts as the help. This will provide additional context so the user can always be able to understand what the functionality of this part of the app does. When you click off, we're gonna, now that you've been assigned tasks, things that are needed to be done, this is the way that the university can guide each participant through the experience. And these are more about experiences, learning experiences that can really help the entrepreneurs build their entrepreneurial muscles by doing, as opposed to sitting passively in other learning environments. We go to the diligence tab. This is where the diligence for each of the students will be performed. And when they answer these questions, that's really going to help guide them through the experience. So based on their answers, based on what they've completed, based on what they're working on, then different tasks can be assigned to them so that it is progressive disclosure. We now have an experience for the entrepreneur that when you do something, then you can move to the next step. This is really important in terms of curating an experience specific to each entrepreneur, since every journey is so unique and every startup and idea is so unique. You need a system that could really adapt, and we created this environment so that it does adapt in real time to what it is that they are working on and what it is that the university wants to help them with. Once they have answered their questions, then there is the resource tab. Now this resource tab had videos. The videos can play right here within the app. It also can have articles, links, but what's unique about this tab is that everything here is curated by the university for that individual, that entrepreneur, based on what they're working on. So instead of having too much information, analysis paralysis, as an entrepreneur, they are learning to complete tasks, work on these things, answer their questions, keep their due diligence up to date, keep their progress updated, and then have resources that help them get those things done. So everything is tied together, and these three tabs of tasks, questions, and resources can be created by the university. So these experiences now can really provide the university a way to give a personalized experience for each entrepreneur, but still provide the resources and materials that they have in the system available to them. Go to the timeline This is what's really, really exciting in terms of seeing things in real time. So activity levels, so each entrepreneur can see what's happening. This is important for the ability for them to search based on activities. They can now search based on responses. Let's go here. We can see different activity dates. So this is okay, what was happening here? This is very busy. Now I can see exactly what was happening at that moment in time. I can see the engagements, what was going on. I can also go into events. So if there were live videos happened, all of the resources here are going to provide transcripts from those meetings. They're going to provide videos that you can watch back from those experiences. So this is a personalized timeline for each entrepreneur that only shows what it is that they're working on, what groups they may be collaborating with and working on in real time. So now they're seeing a feed of information. They can learn from these data insights that can help them developing their ideas and collaborating with one another. As we go through as an administrator, as somebody from the university who is creating these experiences, we're going to show you our packet tab. These are all the different packets. Packets are the combination of questions, tasks, resources, and even discussion starters that they can assign to each entrepreneur or participant on their journey. So you distill everything down into our system based on those interactions and activities that entrepreneurs do every day. So we're going to go in here and I'm going to search for the pitch packet to give you an idea of what this looks like. When you create a packet as an administrator, you're able to see people who are engaging with that packet. So it can be a group. This can be a circle for a workshop that are working together. It could be a circle like for a cohort of entrepreneurs that are working together. It could be to an individual. So these packets can be assigned to various groups based on what it is that they are working on at that moment in time. As you go through, you will see the answers to the question, the details of this packet, or going through this experience that the administrator has created for them. So I will open up here so you can see the questions, the answers, the response, diagrams, videos that they've uploaded. This is the area that now the administrator can see who's engaging with the materials, who's actively using it, where are they potentially getting stuck. All of these data insights, of course, are not only helpful in collaboration and guiding them through the experience, but also identifying if they need help, additional assistance, or where they may be getting stuck. It's very easy to create a packet. We've made it really fun. The tasks can be created here. They look just like as they will appear when they land on the Kanban board page. They also can create questions. This has a lot of different functionality in the questions. They can upload images, they can have options, and also create those resources. So if I wanted to create a new resource, I can then here design a resource, add an image, a video, anything that would help them complete those tasks, answer those questions. So these are relevant resources that are going to help the participant in that moment in time on their journey. We have this amazing area. I'm going to go ahead and show you as a student who has completed a perfect pitch, what I can see on my end. I can see that I've answered all my questions. So I'm going to go to my perfect pitch packet. I can see my own questions. If I want to go here and undo a question or update, I have full control in my data vault of my information, my answers, and what I'm working on. So this allows myself and the university who's guiding me through the experience, or the mentors that are going to be helping me along the way, to see what I'm seeing, to see everything in real time updated. Now, Pitches are the exciting example of the outward-facing side of the interface. So this is, of course, where the entrepreneur is engaging with the university. They are learning, they're developing, they're collaborating, experimenting their ideas. And then at the end, they have an outward presentation. So Perfect Pitch is a great example of when the idea will need to now be pitched outward. LiveStack, where this Perfect Pitch will be turned into an auto-generated presentation that can be shared outward with the community in a public-facing side of the platform.
Okay, so thank you, Alexis, for doing the video. Most people would rather listen to her than me, so we kind of plan most of our time that way. The next part we're actually going to talk about is and show a video of is what happens after this. So this is our white label platform. Universities use it. It's community groups. We're actually working with underserved founders and innovators. The next part is actually what happens with that data. So with that, we actually auto-generate what we call LiveStack, which is kind of a pitch deck on steroids. All of our data throughout our entire platform is all live, real time. And with the pitch deck, LiveStack, we auto-generate that to show, and that's used for pitches, for mentoring sessions with a class or the teacher, and even for intramural events. So we have upcoming innovation cups is what we're calling it, where there'll be intramural events between colleges, universities, community groups, incubators, as pitch competitions. So I want to show this next video, and we'll kind of show the result of that and what we call LiveStack.
Once a packet has been created by an administrator, and our example here is the Perfect Pitch packet, then these materials can auto-generate a deck or outward-facing what we call LiveStack. This is an example of what now can be shared outward. It could be shared either between the entrepreneurs working, it could be shared with the community, whoever you want to share the answers to these questions in the form of a presentation. So here are different entrepreneurs that have gone through and completed the LiveStack. When you click on a LiveStack, this is going to encourage anyone who is interacting with this material to click on the stack. The stack will have a very consistent presentation, making it more equitable for all of these presentations to be compared side by side. As a university, it's really important to have equitable access and presentation so they can level the playing field for entrepreneurs to be compared side by side. It also allows them a better way to engage with the materials. One of the important elements as an entrepreneur in connecting with the outside world may be to showcase what their product or service does. It may be to raise funding or awareness for their product. So this is important that the presentation is more than just a PDF. It needs to be an interactive document. LiveStacks allows us to do just that. So these are all auto-generated slides that we are seeing based on real-time answers that are being performed and updated in the system by each entrepreneur. As I go through any of the LiveStack presentations, it is going to encourage anyone who is looking at the stack to interact directly using this very familiar interactive layer. This will allow them to get either additional information, pushing them to the next step of what they need to do or how they can connect with an investor or someone in the community who wants to support this entrepreneur on their next journey. It can also make an introductory email that instantly makes an introduction to them with a click of a button, and even show their interest to connect to discuss investment. We, of course, again have the help tab here as well, which will remind any user that is interacting with this element to know what the next steps options are. So this is how the LiveStack makes it a more interactive experience, that it is now not only providing an auto-generated presentation so the founder's not spending hours having to update, or one founder who has really great graphic skills is going to look better or less strong than another. It's focusing on the content and the ideas. It's creating a universal way to compare apples to apples. So now that you have this view, we've made it mobile first, which is where we showcase the slides here. If you are on desktop or mobile or have a preference to see all the slides at one time, you can also switch to the report view. This allows the viewer to be able to see it in the way that best is suited for their device. Now, the exciting part. You've moved to the next step. You've connected with this founder. It's instantly happening between the entrepreneur without the university needing somebody in the middle, which slows down introductions. It slows down these opportunities that are so important for the founders to succeed. They need to be made in real time. So now that the connections are made in real time, that entrepreneur can turn their stack, their presentation now that's been auto-generated, that saved them hours of preparation. It keeps them focused on their business and the content and what's important about their ideas and important about their traction happening. And now they can actually meet live. So we can turn this stack into a live event. What is so exciting here is that now, no matter where you are in the world, we don't worry about screen share. We're able to ensure that the deck is right there ready on the page. If this were an event and the university needed to switch between the different decks, they can do so without having to do the whole "can you hear me now" thing every time they bring on a new founder. It also, again, is creating, you can see, side-by-side presentation, allowing all of the presentations to be consistent and easy to follow. This is really important, and it still gives the interactive abilities that the deck has when it is shared. So they can still connect directly with anyone who attended this live event, whether it was an investor or someone from the community. And what's really exciting is we're here for the entrepreneurs. One thing that is important is the entrepreneur to control their narrative and tell their story. In order to do that, then you need to not interrupt that story. Every environment allows a chat area and also very interruptive type interfaces. You will notice here in our live event stack, we keep it very focused on the present, on the presenter, and on what's happening here. But we allow this ability for anyone in the audience to not interrupt, but to be able to record a question live. I, as a presenter, can go back and play any question live here, so that at the end of my presentation—
David and Alexis, it's the WeTransact slides and not mine.
And be able to address that question or concern or answer it right there during the live event, if time permits. If not, I have that recording on my live feed and I'm able to go back, answer, interact with that later. I also will have a transcript of the entire event presentation. I will now know, when did they ask that question? What slide were we on? What were we talking about? All of this information is very valuable to the entrepreneur to more, to learn faster, to adapt and pivot, to maximize their success. So as a university, this tool gives further data insights and more information for the entrepreneur to succeed, making it easier for them to move to the next step and to create a more frictionless way to engage with the interface.
Okay, so now I hope everyone liked the videos. I want to talk a little bit about now our what the application is and a lot about the AI that we utilize within the background. It's a progressive web app, so it works on any device and installable on any device. It's a completely event-driven serverless architecture, all on Google Cloud. I'm a big fan. I've used and worked with every cloud technology, and from a developer's perspective, and especially a small team perspective, I don't think there's anything better. The AI we focus on, and throughout my career, has always been human first. It's human plus machine always, and the idea is to put the human in the front and to understand what the human needs. So we do things like recommend allies and resources for the entrepreneur, which are some basic AI things. We're also using generative text and images to help people create their answers that go into the decks, so we can help them answer it better and in a more clear and efficient way. And also to help them with imagery, which is often an expensive part or a really hard part for entrepreneurs that aren't in that area. We also transcribe our live events so that we transcribe everything going on, and we associate that with all the data that's going on during that time too. Not just the transcription of what's being said and what's being asked, but also what's being done at that time, who came in and out, who was attending, who answered questions at what time, what slide they were looking at when that happened, and outside events also, so that we can turn all that into an after action report. That report will provide kind of all this context about that event and how things went and how things are going, in addition to next steps and next actions that can be taken that were extracted and derived from that. We also use all of this data to help calculate a chance of success at each stage. So throughout the process, with every question they're answering, we're giving them kind of a chance of success based on a lot of real-time criteria, comparables, and things like that. And not so that we can say, oh, this one's good and this one's bad, which is a traditional way that a lot of systems did for an investor, right? This is for the founder. We're always founder first. So the idea is for us to tell them as early as possible. We call it pre-due diligence. Throughout the entire process from the very beginning, you're doing due diligence. So by the time you get to those questions, by the time you get to that question and answer area, we think you're going to be successful because we've got you there. We've assigned you packets based on lackings or based on parts you're struggling with. And by the time you get there and you get in front of people, you have the answers ready. The same as kind of leveling the playing field. So the same way an Ivy League college has prepared them for answers, this is preparing everyone to be ready in the same way so that we can compare apples to apples, the idea, not how much money you came from originally, not where you came from, not the university you came out of. We want it to be a comparable thing so that everyone has a chance to get their idea across. There's so many underserved ideas out there. So our focus of AI is to guide that, to make sure that these ideas are seen and that they are successful. So in that case, we can take a few questions if we'd like. From the last one, I'm a little worried because there's a lot of silence after that. But I'd be happy to answer a few questions.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Okay,
Yes.
great. I guess.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me better?
I can now. Yes. Now, excellent.
Okay, great. One question I had is you mentioned like you want to bring the startup, make it equitable and make it comparing apples to apples. How would you answer the question of because removing some things like the ability, right, you said to have nice graphics or to bring in the right people, how do you ensure that you're actually comparing apples to apples and not lowering it down to the lowest common denominator?
Absolutely fair question. We're not really removing the ability to create great imagery. If you have great imagery, you can answer it as part of the question. You can upload your image or your graphs and charts and things like that. We don't ever want to take away. We just want to bring up. So if you don't have that stuff, we have the tools to help you get that automatically so that you can really focus on the idea. We want people like working on a business and an idea, not a pitch deck. And often entrepreneurs spend probably 70, 80% of their time constantly redoing a pitch, redoing a deck, changing something here, changing something there because of a meeting they had. So no, we don't lower. We hope it's always raising. And I always want feedback if anyone's using the platform or has comments or suggestions to make sure that we do that. I want to keep us honest in that way for sure.
I want to add one thing too, that that's one of the things that's really great is that for the entrepreneurs that aren't able, that's really going to convey what they want to convey on that slide, by being able to take the keywords, the text, and have it auto-generate an image that then better matches something that they can't go out and produce or take that image themselves.
And for that stuff,
really
for some of those pieces, we do our own stuff with generating charts and graphs and things. And for some of those pieces, obviously, we're using some very well-known and popular tools that are out now for text to image.
I got you. Okay, thank you. And I guess one more question, if I may. What are you doing, considering this is like a new platform, and just like noticing kind of the demos that we're going through, lots of interesting interactive UI elements, a lot of custom stuff, a lot of very, I guess, non-traditional or not, I guess, instantly recognizable user flows. I guess what are the conversations that you guys are having to ensure coming from like targeting university students, startups, people with obviously, like you mentioned, very busy schedules, and I mean, they really just want to focus on their product. What kind of conversations are you having in terms of accessibility and making it easier for the users to understand your flow in particular?
So for better or for worse, we've had live users since about 30 days into starting development. So it's been somewhat of a struggle, but we've had instant feedback at all points, at every step. And I very much, there are some areas, and we kind of focused on like our radio menu, which is really the somewhat only out of the ordinary area, but it was for a very specific purpose to make mobile easier for Kanban and things like that, and also provide a help system. So people have really reacted well to that. Otherwise, we try to generally stay by actually material guidelines for UI and all of our iconography and all that kind of stuff. So we generally stick to a pretty standard way, unless we think we can really significantly add something there. But we test it with our users significantly, almost daily, if not weekly.
Yeah, we did about a year of stealth mode with underserved founders in particular to really make sure that, okay, if we can service their needs and where they feel that the current system is failing them and improve that experience for them, then let's share those learnings with the world, because that can help everybody.
And generally, we only vary from kind of traditional guidelines if it's really significantly better, or if we can make it more fun. We don't want it to be a back office tool. We want this to be fun for the teachers, the students, and the viewers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you.
I have a question over here. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I can't. Yeah.
Yes. So I keep hearing university, but I know some entrepreneurs, and I'd like to discuss this with them. Is it open to everyone? And I have a related question.
Absolutely. We encourage any organization. We have a white label, so it's your organization and you're the face and you're the front. We work with community organizations. As a matter of fact, one we can't quite announce yet, but that serves underserved, a large population of underserved people across the country. So we love community groups. Just anybody, like, if it's a hobby group, hey, let's be a hobby entrepreneur group. We think that would be amazing. And we've built the platforms that there's a kind of an immediate hockey stick. The cost goes up with you. We have a cost, but it's per user per month, and you just pay and you can charge with your group, or we can finance it for the group. But you can just start immediately. It really takes about 20 to 30 minutes for us to launch a new white label. And then it's an installable PWA with your logo. It's your application. It's everything regards to your organization. So we absolutely love working with any organization.
And where would they start? Go to we would. Oh, go ahead. Continue.
Go to WeTransact.live. So that's WeTransact.live, and you'll see the pricing. You can start free trial, which we always recommend, because that's a really great way to, like you said, try it out and go.
Within there, you can just contact us and have set you up and work with you.
And a somewhat related question is, most of these entrepreneurs I know are very headstrong. So how would you talk them into, because he's a perennial entrepreneur that's always fundraising, but he never raises anything. So what would you do?
Yeah. Well, being a 35-year one myself, in addition to being in and out of the corporate world, I'd say I'm probably the most headstrong of them all. So I truly understand that. And I kind of related to the previous person's question. We try to make this a 5-minute tool, right? I really hope that it's 5 minutes of people's day, every day, kind of progressive disclosure and working with it, and that they can see immediate results, really. I think generally those type of people, I've been giving, on the investor side, I've been handed business plans that are 30, 40 pages long. I said, yeah, that's just never going to happen. So, so a lot of this is also about making sure you don't do too much work in the wrong direction too. It's not more work. It's actually probably far less work than you think it is, and far simpler, but just you need the right pieces. And so to me, I think it's that. I hope it's a fun tool. It's always in your hands on your phone. It only takes a little bit of time, but hopefully it saves you a lot unless you really focus on your innovation. It's going to change the world, not, hey, another pitch, more pitching, which it does. It can take thousands of pitches before you sometimes get an investor. And we want to reduce, streamlining the process, which will make it also more attractive to investors. Right? There's this big pool of easy apples to apples that have already done all their pre-due diligence. Now it's right for the picking. Right?
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
thank
Great to see you.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. We really enjoyed it. I appreciate your time and thank you for listening to us. Please contact us if you have any interest or questions or comments or snide remarks. I'm open to them all. And now we're heading into talk with Martin, and everyone's looking forward to seeing the next presentation.
All right. So I don't know about you, but I took the red eye here from California last night. I got off the plane at 5 a.m. this morning. All of us, we've been sitting down a long time. We need to oxygenate our brains a bit. I know I do. So we're going to do a bit of a oxygenation exercise here together. If you would all please stand up, and I'll show you what we'll do. So we'll start off by taking the right hand, and we're going to shake that 8 times as I'm counting out 1, 2, 3, and so on. Then we'll switch to left hand, shake that 8 times. Then we'll shake the right foot 8 times, then left foot 8 times. Then we'll start over. Now we'll go a little faster. Now it will be the 4 hands, 4 times for the right hand, 4 times for the left, 4 times. Then 2 times, 2 times, 2 times, 2 times, 1 time, 1 time, 1 time. Okay? Are you ready? All right, here we go. Start right hand 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Don't kick anybody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. Yay! Well done. Whew. Whew. That woke me up. Thank you for helping me wake up. Yeah. So we're going to talk about cloud run jobs. If you're doing stuff in the cloud, if you will find this useful. If you have written an app, even if it's an Android or web app, any non-trivial app has a cloud component to it. And we'll talk about a new tool from Google that was announced 2 weeks ago at Google I/O. So first off, let's talk about me. So I was born and raised in Sweden. I've lived in Silicon Valley for 22 years. I worked at 3 startups before I joined Google, worked at Google for 16 years. It's a really hard place to leave. And I work as a cloud developer advocate. So my job is to help you who build awesome stuff in the cloud, build awesome applications, awesome services. My job is to help you be more productive and stand on the shoulders of Google and build cooler stuff sooner. All right, so there's never been a better time to be a cloud developer. It is also true that there has never been a worse time to be a cloud developer. The reason is, first off, let's start with the first one. There's never been a better time to be a cloud developer. This is why. We finally, after years, decades, we figured out the it runs on my machine problem. This used to hit me all the time when I worked in startups. I would write code on my developer machine. It would work great on my machine. We deployed to production, it would break. Why? Well, because the right libraries weren't in production, weren't installed on the production server. Or there was the right libraries, but not the right versions. So we finally figured this out. It's called containers. Has anybody here
worked with containers on the server? A few? Okay, excellent. So basically, instead of deploying the yellow box, which is the code that we developers have written, we now deploy the whole gray box, including the libraries. That's all a container is. Your code and the libraries. And what's funny is I actually looked at one of my apps on Monday. My application was 2% of the code of the whole application. Libraries were 98%. So it's really important to deploy the right libraries. Okay, so containers, great. Now we can deploy stuff predictably in the cloud. At the same time, though, there are a bajillion ways to run containers in the cloud. This is the CNCF Cloud Native Foundations, their cloud landscape slide. There are hundreds of products here, hundreds of tools for running containers. How do we know where to run them? Well, serverless can come to the rescue here. Serverless computing. This is where I just upload my code to Google or to whoever my cloud platform provider is, and they figure out how many servers it should run on and when and where. This is actually a choice you have to make. You have had to make until very recently. If you're coding stuff, you put in code on a server somewhere, you have to choose between either containers or serverless. So containers, that's like Docker, Kubernetes, if you've heard of that stuff. Kubernetes is quite complex. Or serverless, that is like AWS Lambda or Google Cloud Functions. So great thing with containers is that you have fine-grained control. You could put anything in Kubernetes, but it's a lot of work to get it right. The good thing about serverless is that there's no infrastructure management. You just tell Google, here's my code. You figure out where in the world it should run and on how many servers. But the drawback is that it's not very portable. You can't develop it in any language. So this was the choice developers, if we were writing stuff that was running in the cloud, not on our computer, we were faced with this. We had to pick one or the other. But what we're seeing now, increasingly, is that this serverless and containers are joining. And at that juncture, there we have Cloud Run. And this is, Cloud Run is sort of Google's version of this, run a container serverlessly in the cloud. And we're seeing the other major cloud providers coming along and building similar products to Cloud Run. However, I work at Google, so I will talk about Cloud Run. So with Cloud Run, you basically take the advantages of Docker Kubernetes, but you don't have to deal with the complexity of Kubernetes. Does anybody here know Kubernetes? Oh my gosh, I'm impressed. Oh, I raised my hand. I shouldn't have. I don't know Kubernetes. Was it hard to learn? Was it easy to learn? Ralph shakes his head. You gave up. Okay. Kubernetes is hard. Yeah, so we join Kubernetes and serverless, and we get Cloud Run. We just build our container, give it to Google, and say, dear Google, run this container for me. All right, so here's what a typical application might look like. You have your web or mobile app out there on the far left. That's great. Then you have your server-side stuff. You have a REST API or a gRPC API, or maybe a GraphQL API. All the cool kids are using GraphQL now, I hear. Has anybody used GraphQL here? Oh my gosh. I should also lower my hand. I haven't. Was it any good? Should I check it out? Or stick with REST? Ralph, do you have an opinion? Let the younger guys. So anyway, you have those APIs. You can run those on Cloud Run. Then you have your database. Then you have all those backend stuff, like data import, export jobs. You kick off machine learning jobs. You run email campaigns. All that backend stuff that is not triggered by an HTTP request. That stuff you can now also run on Cloud Run. That was what was announced 2 weeks ago at Google I/O. So this is called Cloud Run Jobs. So you build a container like usual, and here are a few things, a few highlights of it. We only have a few more minutes, so I'll go through pretty quickly. But you run a container from start to finish. Basically, you write your code, line 1, line 2, you just write like normal, and it runs like normal. and your container nobody can hit it or trigger it with an HTTP call. So a lot of backend tasks are like that. You just want to run it at midnight every night, send out emails to everybody who abandoned a shopping cart, for example. This is perfect for that. Another thing is you can run your container for up to an hour. Another thing, yeah, so you can parallelize work. I've written lots of code where I wrote, I need to import 1 million data rows. And I wrote complicated code for parallelizing that myself. Cloud Run Jobs does that for you if you have up to 10,000 workers. So you can say, I want 100 workers who will import these invoices or convert these records in the database. And Cloud Run Jobs takes care of it. Automatic retries, also one of those things that I've written lots of code over the years, over the decades for retrying. I'm so glad I never will have to write any retry logic ever again. And I can execute Cloud Run Jobs from schedule or from the cloud command line. And here's pricing. You can all read. I won't read out to you. All right. And blah, 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 cents per gigabyte hours and virtual CPU. Worth noting, by the way, you get 66 hours of free processing every month. So if you need to do less than 66 hours of processing every month, backend jobs, it's free. Gotta love free. So here's an example. For example, we have here in the invoices come in. This is a fictitious company. Invoices come in as PDFs or as images. Then we have a Cloud Run job there in the middle that analyzes the invoices and uses the Google Vision API to pull out the total and the subtotals and addresses and so on, and put that in a database. And then the next morning, on the lower end there, we can see that the accountants can come in and review and approve the invoices. This is an example app that we actually built. So if you want to have a look at how to use Cloud Run Jobs in real life for these sort of unattended workloads, you can check it out. Search YouTube for serverless expeditions. That's my YouTube video series. There's, what does it say? 81 episodes out now that deal with various aspects of Cloud Run, containers, serverless. And the most recent episode was me actually working with Carolina. You see her picture there. She's the product manager for Cloud Run Jobs, who designed the. She walks me through this invoice code example, and you can follow the link from the video as well to see the code. All right, so I should make you aware that we're getting to questions. And I've threatened my kid, who's somewhere here in the audience, I can't see them, that if there are no questions, I will instead regale you all with terrible dad jokes. Yeah. And yes, it'll be terrible. I have a good one, but Switzerland. So think about questions. Well, I'll just wrap up here. For your user-facing code in the cloud, you should use Cloud Run. REST API sits behind your Android or web apps. And you can have backend jobs as well. Import, export, machine learning. And that's all I had. And now it'll be questions or dad jokes. Which will it be? More exercise. Oh, Ralph, excellent.
So how would you talk, because I work in a company that uses Lambda and Google Cloud. How would you say to the management or how this is better than what we're already doing? Like, is there a strategy? Because I find that people don't like new things, unlike me, Google, I love new things, but management doesn't always like new things, So.
Right. I think one option is to stress containers. Google Cloud Functions or AWS Lambda or Azure Functions, all of those, they don't use containers. Your code is basically a prisoner on the cloud platform you're at. If you want to ever move stuff between clouds, you want to be in a container. So, and that's the big trend we're seeing now. All workloads are being containerized. Containers, go. All right. Another question or a dad joke about Switzerland?
Please, someone ask something. I don't want to hear it again. Great job. You got me, right? Please.
They have to ask questions.
I'll ask you questions.
Oh, Jessica has a question.
Could you tell us a dad joke about Switzerland?
Love it. Okay, so what is so great about Switzerland?
Joke it or joke. You've told us so many times. We're gonna ruin it. Plus on the flag.
So, well, it's
That's it. There's nothing else.
no, a little different. What's so great about Switzerland? I don't know, but the flag is a big plus. And with that, I'll wrap up. Thank you so much. I look for the pink shirt in the back if you have any questions about containers, cloud run jobs, cloud, all of that stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for staying all the way through. Again, give it up for Martin from Google. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I come bearing gifts. Thank you for warming up the audience for me. That's amazing. I need the clicker. Oh, thank you very much. Yes, thank you so much, guys. Welcome again. Please give it up again for the GDG NYC organizing group. They've been doing an amazing job. And of course, the Samsung team for facilitating in this amazing facility. So thank you so much, guys. Great. So we're going to be talking about Flutter. Again, my name is Roman. I am a Flutter GDE. I am also a GDG organizer at GDG Lawrence. Yes, I drove 5 hours all the way from Massachusetts just to be with you guys here, sharing all the announcements about Flutter. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Yes. Great. Let's start. Oh, you guys can scan the QR code at the corner if you guys want to follow me on Twitter. That's awesome. I know. Speed it up. Speed it up. Thank you. Let's go. Flutter. So what is Flutter? If some of you have been living under a rock, Flutter is an open source UI toolkit supported by Google for you to develop amazing applications with one single code base, like beautiful, fast, natively compiled applications using one single code base, and you can target multiple platforms. I just wanted to test people in here to see if you guys know Flutter. So I'm going to say a question, and you're going to complete that question, or you're going to complete this sentence. Everything in Flutter is a... Say it again. Everything in Flutter is a... Okay, so okay, you're going to get a t-shirt. Small, medium, or large? Okay, here you go. Large, medium, here you go. Sorry. No, him. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So there you go. See, we have a couple of infiltrated developers in here. That's awesome. Great. So let's continue. So that's Flutter. Flutter's a framework for you to develop multi-platform applications, and I love it. I am also a Flutter developer. I became a Flutter developer because I was so passionate about it. So let's continue. So you can develop amazing applications with one single code base using Dart as the programming language. And then you see that you can target multiple platforms. It's very fast, hardware accelerated graphics. It's an amazing platform. And you don't have to ask, what platform is it that I'm targeting? You just develop your code, you put your creativity in front, and then you can target all those amazing platforms. I came up with a mnemonic to remember all the platforms that Flutter targets. So I call it the WIM whale. So this is how it is. So it's Windows, iOS, macOS, web, Android, Linux, embedded. So the usage is, if I'm going to do a project, I'm going to do the WIM whale. So let's make it a thing, and please help me out with that. So yes, so let's do the WIM whale. Next one. I'll keep that number in there so that you guys can basket in a little bit. So it's 500,000 applications currently developed in and more than 150 million users of those same applications. So this is exactly the best time for you to join the Flutter movement, because you can develop a lot of cool applications with it. And Flutter framework is actually taking the industry by storm. So you should definitely take advantage of that. So let's start with the announcements. First one was Flutter support on Apple Silicon. So Apple Silicon is the next generation of processor architecture that powers the latest Apple hardware, like the Pros and all of that. Flutter comes with 2 SDKs, one for Intel processors and one for Apple Silicon or M1 processors. So now when you compile your application, it actually runs natively on those type of processors. So that's amazing. That's one of the major announcements about the Flutter 3 on Apple Silicon. Next one, Linux folks in here, Linux fans in here. Awesome. So there is a stable support for Linux for specifically like for Ubuntu, based on the collaboration with the company called Canonical. Canonical, for those of you who don't know, is the company that came up with Ubuntu. So stable support for Linux is available on Ubuntu. So you guys don't quote me on this, but even the Canonical team, the team at Ubuntu, they're even supporting and suggesting using Flutter as the default UI toolkit for developing native applications in Linux, as opposed to GTK, for example. So don't quote me on that, but that's what I heard. A little bluebird told me that. Awesome. So any web people in here? JavaScript, HTML? Awesome, great. So there are, if you're on the fence, let's say, in adopting Flutter as your default framework for developing web applications, so this will make you a believer. So we have a new lifecycle API, which allows you to actually, it gives you a lot of flexibility and control of the bootstrapping process of your web application from the hosting HTML page. And I don't know if you guys have heard of Lighthouse. Lighthouse is a plugin on Chrome that allows you to like evaluate the performance of your web application. So now the Flutter 3 brings improvements on that on Lighthouse. So for those of you, this is amazing. And last but not least, the image decoder API, only for browsers that allows it. Flutter 3 brings an improvement on like faster decoding, image decoding on the browser. Before, let's say when you do like a Flutter web application, the images will look like a little bit like jagged, a little bit of jankiness. And then now it has twice faster image decoding on the web. So it's amazing Flutter improvements on the web. So for those of you, take advantage of that. The next one, Flutter developer tools. So speaking about things developed in Flutter for the web, the set of developer and like profiling tools that ship with Flutter SDK is actually called Flutter developer tools. Brings a lot of cool things like enhanced tracing. You can like take a look at the build, layout, and paint events, and those are things that you can improve, make your application improve it as far as like the speed and all of that. Also, there's improvements on the network tab. And one of my favorites, there is one feature in the developer tools. I don't know if those of you who have tried Flutter have tried like state management. I know there's always like a debate on that. So there's a dedicated like a plugin for provider that you can take a look at the state management of your application. Flutter and foldable devices. Before Samsung cuts my feed, I'm sorry, do not kill the messenger. That is a Surface Duo from Microsoft. So please don't cut. I wish I would have put like a Samsung foldable in there. But again, the support on foldable devices was actually spearheaded by Microsoft. And this is a Surface Duo, but definitely in the future, we definitely should see more foldable devices like the Samsung Galaxy. So please don't cut me. Great. Dart developers in the house, Dart developers, awesome, great. There's a lot of great features on Dart for both Flutter developers. And let me show you a couple of my favorite. One of them, enhanced enumeration. I know I'm going to be talking a lot of code, blah, 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 but enhanced enumerations is pretty cool because in enumerations in the past, you would have to like add extension methods to it. Now, anything you can add to a class, you can add it to an enumeration. You can add fields, methods, you can implement an interface, it's pretty cool. So please take advantage of that in Flutter 3. The next one, named arguments everywhere. So right now, whenever you're trying to define your API in your code, you provide named arguments, and the named arguments allow you to define what your parameters, what your arguments are all about. Like you're trying to define what they are, and that's what kind of makes your API more descriptive. So now, actually in the past, Dart forced you to add the name parameters at the end. Now you can add them anywhere as it makes sense to you, as you can make it more readable. And last but not least, super constructors. So now it saves like 50% of the boilerplate code that you can see in there. So you see like on the left, there's like a bunch of code. Now all you could do is implicitly pass the parameters into the super constructor just by saying super dot, as opposed to doing like double the amount of code. So this, I like it. Firebase people in the house, awesome, great. I love Firebase. Why? Because it allows me to create really cool applications, very cool Flutter applications backed on the Google Cloud on a serverless architecture. So I love that. So a couple of the announcements are the Flutter Fire plugin, which is the plugin that you use to connect Flutter to Firebase. And now all that plugin has been moved to the main Firebase account. Before it used to be like in Firebase Extended. Now it's part of the Firebase ecosystem. And the second one is the documentation. The developer documentation was hosted on Firebase Flutter.dev. Now it has been moved to the official site of Firebase. Now it's all together along with all the supports for all the other platforms. So let me like compare this to you so that you know how cool it is. So Firebase and Flutter are like a celebrity power couple. They're like, they've had relationships with other technologies. They are cool together. They look amazing together. They are the best at what they do. So who can I compare it to so that you can actually relate to? Okay. I think I can say that Flutter and Firebase are even greater than Pete and Kim Kardashian. Why? Because look at this. They're at the top of their game. They're the best at what they do. They've had relationships with other people. But as history has told us, Flutter and Firebase will last a little longer. You want to bet? You know what's going to happen. Great, let's continue. So Flutter and Firebase. Now there's an additional platform option. When you go to the Firebase console, there's like a little Flutter icon right now, along with the other platforms. That's what's pretty cool about it, because now it kind of guides you towards installing like the Firebase CLI. You can install other packages so that you can make a deeper integration. I know some of you may be like, but this, like, I've been using Flutter and Firebase for the past 3 years, but actually what this is demonstrating is that Flutter and Firebase are actually more integrated together, deeper integration, and more collaboration. So it makes your applications a lot cooler. Great. Moving along, I love Crashlytics. That's one of the improvements that they did on Firebase for debugging your Flutter applications. Before, there used to be an issue where the source code, the compiled source code, wouldn't map to the exact lines of code in your source code. Now, let's say, for example, when you put your applications in production, and if they're on the wild, and something happens, like a crash happens, you actually get a notification, exactly the line of code that caused the issue, and you can immediately tackle it, fix the issue, and escalate, and then you can make your application much better for the future and for the rest of your users. Next one is Material 3. Material 3 is the set of guidelines and like design guidelines from Google that allows you to make like very design applications, specifically on the new Android devices. So Material 3, you should take advantage of that to make your applications a lot more robust, a lot more UI centric. And one of my favorite ones is the Casual Games Toolkit. This toolkit gives you kind of like a set of templates, guidelines, and tutorials so that you can develop your Flutter games using the Flutter framework. Like some people, any gamers, any game developers in here? Awesome, great. So now with the Flutter Games Toolkit, you actually can develop applications in Flutter. The misconception is that Flutter is only for like line of business applications, but it's amazing to know and to see how developers have pushed Flutter to develop like casual games. I myself have built a couple, and again, I'm very pleased with that. And if I'm just going to continue saying all the announcements and all the highlights, I'm going to spend the whole night. So actually, I'm just going to invite you to go to io.google, and then you can take a look at tutorials, all workshops so that you can see all the latest stuff coming out of Flutter. Myself, I've also created a couple of tutorials and workshops so you can take a look at that and also learn more about Flutter. So with that, I think I made really good time. So thank you so much, everybody. I hope everybody's still awake. I just wanted to say thank you. Good luck in your Flutter learning journey. And remember, everything in Flutter is awesome. Okay, so who's large out of the people? Okay, there you go. And I have a small. That's the, oh, here we go. The ladies right here. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you, Roman. That was awesome. Another round of applause for Roman. Guys, thank you for waiting till the very last minute and being part of our community. We are so happy to extend GDG New York City with all of you. We really, really enjoyed it. I hope you guys did too. Thanks to our team, Anna, Madonna, who left a little early, Carolina, and many, many more. And the Samsung team, a round of applause for Samsung, please. And last of all, to all of our wonderful speakers, a round of applause to them for participating in this beautiful, beautiful event. To many more, cheers, guys. Good night.